Chapter 4036. The Imperial Dragon King nodded and sighed. Your worry is also my worry. The top 3 geniuses of the Supreme Divine Hall will receive additional rewards from the lecturers. The previous lecturers are not as important as the Patriarch. Anything that the Patriarch offers must be extremely valuable. The other disciples of the 9 kings of Hushu will also participate this time. Even Tuo Sheng will not be able to get into the top 3, especially Lei Ling, the disciple of the Divine Thunder King. He will be the undisputed number 1 this time. He is too amazing. Luke also sighed and said, Lei Ling is indeed a rare genius. He has only cultivated for 5,000 years and is already at the peak of the demonic transformation realm. His combat strength is not much weaker than mine. He will definitely be crowned king in the future. With his understanding, he will definitely be the best in this training. Luke looked at Zhuowen again. Lei Ling, the disciple of the Divine Thunder King, was indeed a rare genius. However, he knew that the young man in front of him was even more monstrous than Lei Ling. After all, Zhuowen was only at the mid-stage of the demonic transformation realm, but he could easily defeat him. In the entire Hushu region, it was almost impossible to find a monstrous genius comparable to Zhuowen. Let's go. Let's go to the Supreme Divine Hall first, the Imperial Dragon King said. Luke nodded and led Zhuowen and Sa Mei into the palace behind the open space. Wherever they passed, the experts who were originally testing all stopped and respectfully bowed to the 2 of them. The 9 kings of Hushu had a very high status in Huxley region. Many experts in Huxley region had to bow when they saw the 9 kings of Hushu. My lords, please follow me. The Patriarch has already prepared your accommodations. At the entrance of the Supreme Divine Hall, an old man with a transcendent aura politely led King Valurium and the Imperial Dragon King into the depths of the hall. On the other hand, Zhuowen and the other 2 were stopped by a little girl who looked like she was carved out of powder. Senior brother, senior sister, follow me. I will bring you to the residence for the advanced students. The little girl's voice was crisp and clear, like the chirping of an oriole. Zhuowen and the other 2 were not surprised. Before entering the Supreme Divine Hall, Luke had told them that someone would lead them to the residence of the Supreme Divine Hall. After all, they were recommended by experts like the 9 kings of Hushu. Therefore, they did not need to take the test to obtain a place. Absolute Divine Hall was very big. Behind the hall, there was a large area of clearly demarcated residences. Every area had courtyards and pavilions. The area was not small. The area at the back of the hall is where the advanced students will stay during this period of time. There are many empty rooms here now. Senior brothers and sisters, you can choose whichever room you like, the little girl said charmingly. Wow, the energy here was even denser than the outside world. Cultivating here was probably several times better than cultivating in the outside world. Senior brother Tuo Sheng, let's choose the closest residence. Sammy pulled Tuo Sheng into the residential area in front of them excitedly. Tuo Sheng was helpless. He had no choice but to follow behind Sa Mei. He looked at Zhuowen apologetically. Senior brother, aren't you going to choose a residence? The little girl looked at the motionless Zhuowen and asked curiously, I have already obtained a place for advanced studies. I will definitely have a place here. It makes no difference to me whether I choose one or not. Zhuowen said indifferently. The little girl looked at Zhuowen in surprise. By the way, junior sister, do you know where the Medicine Divine Pavilion is? Zhuowen asked with a smile. Medicine Divine Pavilion? Senior brother, why do you ask? Not just anyone can enter that place. The little girl said, cautiously. Zhuowen said with a smile, I have long heard that the Medicine Divine Pavilion contains countless years of the clan's collection. I am very interested in alchemy. Therefore, the Medicine Divine Pavilion is very sacred to me. I have always wanted to go in and take a look. There are indeed many divine herbs in the Medicine Divine Pavilion. However, ordinary people are not allowed to enter. Basically, only the clan's alchemists are qualified to enter. Senior brother, it is useless for you to be interested in alchemy. You are not an alchemist, so you are not qualified to enter. The little girl said innocently, I see. It seems that I won't have the chance to enter the Medicine Divine Pavilion. Zhuowen said with disappointment. The little girl could not bear it. She pulled on Zhuowen's clothes and said, Senior brother, don't be sad. Although you can't enter the Medicine Divine Pavilion, you can still walk around outside. Really? Can I go take a look at the Medicine Divine Pavilion now? Zhuowen suddenly said. The little girl was a little confused by Zhuowen's words. Why did she feel that this senior brother's face changed so quickly? When she saw the hopeful look on Zhuowen's face, she inexplicably did not want to disappoint Zhuowen. All right, I can take you to the Medicine Divine Pavilion to take a look. However, we can't stay for too long. Otherwise, we will all be punished. The little girl said timidly. Junior sister, don't worry. I won't make things difficult for you. I just want to see what the Medicine Divine Pavilion is like, Zhuowen said with a smile. All right, then, senior brother, follow me. The little girl did not think too much. She skipped and led the way in front. The corner of Zhuowen's mouth curled into a smile as he followed closely behind the little girl. On the way, Zhuowen asked about the specific whereabouts of the longevity, limitless divine medicine. It was in the depths of the Medicine Divine Pavilion. The longevity, limitless, was one of the treasures of the Medicine Divine Pavilion. The little girl was indeed very naive. No matter what Zhuowen asked, she basically answered without hesitation. She did not have the slightest suspicion. This made Zhuowen feel a little guilty. After all, deceiving such an innocent little girl made him feel a little guilty. The Medicine Divine Pavilion was still some distance away from the Ultimate Divine Hall. The Ultimate Divine Hall was located at the peak of the Ultimate Divine Mountain, while the Medicine Divine Pavilion was halfway up the mountain. What made Zhuowen feel strange was that the Medicine Divine Pavilion should be considered a forbidden area of the Ultimate Divine Mountain. The security was indeed tight. However, the little girl in front of him actually entered the Medicine Divine Pavilion unimpeded. Zhuowen looked deeply at the little girl leading the way in front of him. His eyes revealed a dignified expression. He knew that the little girl's identity was probably not simple. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to enter the vicinity of the Medicine Divine Pavilion so easily. Senior brother, this is the Medicine Divine Pavilion. The little girl stopped in front of a magnificent pavilion. The appearance of this pavilion was more like the shape of a medicinal cauldron. In front of the pavilion, there was a huge signboard with the words Medicine Divine Pavilion written on it. At the same time, at the entrance of the pavilion, some alchemists in long robes came in and out. In addition to many alchemists, there were groups of patrolling cultivators outside from time to time, appearing and disappearing at the entrance. Zhuowen keenly noticed that the alchemists and patrolling cultivators in and out revealed extremely shocked expressions when they saw the little girl in front of him. But soon, they continued with what they were doing as if nothing had happened. They did not show any other expressions. Chapter 4037. Senior brother, this is the Medicine Divine Pavilion. However, we can only take a look outside the pavilion. We can't go in. The little girl turned around and looked at Zhuowen with her big, watery eyes. Thank you, junior sister. I'm already very satisfied to be able to take a look at the Medicine Divine Pavilion. Zhuowen rubbed the little girl's head while he secretly formed a seal with his other hand. He secretly left a temporary teleportation portal in the corner. His movements were very inconspicuous, and no one noticed. Hee, I'm still very powerful. My father always says that I'm too young and won't let me do anything. Now, I've done you a big favor. The little girl said proudly. Zhuowen looked at the little girl and asked with a smile, Junior sister, who's your father? My father. He told me before that I can't mention his name to anyone. However, you just need to know that my father is the most powerful person in this divine city. The little girl giggled. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He already knew who the little girl was. In the divine city of Hushu, there was only one person who could be called the most powerful person. He was the leader of the Huxley clan, Lu Renjue. Junior sister, you've done me a big favor. I'm really grateful. My name is Zhuowen. You can call me Senior Brother Zhuowen. Zhuowen said with a smile. My name is Lu Fengyuan. Senior Brother Zhua, you can call me Junior Sister Lu. The little girl giggled. Junior Sister Lu, let's go. After Zhuowen secretly set up the temporary teleportation portal, he smiled at Lu Fengyuan. Senior Brother Zhua, since the Medicine Divine Pavilion is your wish, I can beg my father to let you in, Lu Fengyuan suddenly said, as if she had made up her mind. Zhuowen looked at Lu Fengyuan strangely. She had already helped him a lot. She actually wanted to help him enter the Medicine Divine Pavilion. This puzzled him. After all, this was the first time he had met Lu Fengyuan. It was a little unbelievable that the latter would help him to this extent. Although Lu Fengyuan was young, her ability to observe people's expressions was not bad. She also saw the strange expression on Zhuowen's face. Senior Brother Zhua, don't misunderstand. The reason why I'm helping you is because your aura is very similar to one of my elder sisters. When Lu Fengyuan said this, her eyes turned red. Because my elder sister is my father's illegitimate daughter, my father has never liked her. Now that she has been captured, she is imprisoned in the Ghost King Ridge. She was so pitiful. So, Lu Fengyuan, sounded like she was about to cry. Zhuowen rubbed Lu Fengyuan's little head and said gently, Junior Sister Lu, thank you. Let's go. Yes. Lu Fengyuan nodded. She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and left the Medicine Divine Pavilion with Zhuowen. Zhuowen followed behind him, his gaze becoming even more resolute. He naturally knew that the elder sister that Lu Fengyuan mentioned was his master, Shan Lingyun. From this, it seemed that Shan Lingyun was not alone in Huxley. At least, there were still people who cared about her. When they returned to the Supreme Divine Hall, Zhuowen found that Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng were having a conflict with a group of people. Zong Tuo, don't go too far. The residential area here is so big. Why do you have to take our residential area? Sa Mei said agitatedly. In front of Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng stood a burly man who looked like an iron tower. The strange thing was that this burly man had extremely thick black hair all over his body. At first glance, he looked more like a tall and sturdy black bear. Behind the burly man, there were 4 or 5 people. From their expressions, it was obvious that they all followed the burly man's lead. Senior Brother Zhua, his name is Zong Tuo. He is the disciple of the Giant Bear King. The Giant Bear King and the Valurium King have always been on bad terms. This grudge has also spread to the disciples. Lu Fengyuan pulled Zhuowen's clothes and introduced Zong Tuo's identity to Zhuowen. At the same time, she hinted that Zhuowen had better not provoke the Giant Bear King. Zhuowen nodded. He was not so bored as to care about these things. He did not want to care about the grudge between Sa Mei and Zong Tua. Junior Sister Lu, you can go back first. I also need to go back and rest. Zhuowen rubbed Lu Fenyuan's small head and chose a random house to rest in. Bang! Suddenly, a battered figure flew over and crashed in front of the house that Zhuowen had chosen. Zhuowen looked over and saw that the figure was none other than Sa Mei. Zong Tua, don't go too far. We have already made concessions. Why are you being so aggressive? Tua Sheng quickly came over to help Sa Mei up and said to Zong Tua, who was not far away. Zong Tua, who was like an iron tower, strode over and looked down coldly at Tua Sheng and Sa Mei. He sneered, "Get out. As long as I'm here, don't even think about living here. Get lost and live outside." Sa Mei and Tua Sheng's eyes were full of anger. Zong Tua was deliberately targeting them. He wanted to drive them out of this residential area and make them a laughingstock. Only then did Sa Mei and Tua Sheng notice Zhuowen, who had just walked to the door. "Junior brother Zhua, senior brother." Sa Mei and Tua Sheng called out at the same time. They were wondering where Zhuowen had gone. He had only just returned. Senior brother, are you the new disciple that King Valurium has just accepted?" Zong Tuo's gaze fell on Zhuowen, a cruel smile on his face. Zhuowen sighed softly. He did not want to cause trouble, but trouble just had to find him. "Yes, I am King Valurium's new disciple. What do you want?" Zhuowen said calmly. "Want? No, I just want you to get out of here." Zong Tua crossed his arms and chuckled. "What if I don't?" Zhuowen said. Sa Mei and Tua Sheng's expressions changed slightly. They quickly tried to persuade him. "Senior brother, Zong Tuo's strength is not to be underestimated. He has already reached the early stage of the demonic transformation. He is stronger than senior brother Tua Sheng, and don't be rash." Sa Mei hurriedly advised. Tua Sheng also tried his best to persuade him. The two of them only knew that Zhuowen had just been brought back by Luke. They did not know about Zhuowen's true strength. They thought that Luke valued him mainly because of his great talent. His cultivation level was not necessarily high. Therefore, they subconsciously thought that Zhuowen was no match for Zong Tua. Just an early stage of the demonic transformation. Not worth mentioning. Zhuowen smiled faintly. Zong Tuo's face immediately darkened. What an arrogant kid. How dare he say that he is only an early-stage demonic transformation? One had to know that his cultivation could be considered to be at the top of the younger generation of the Hushu clan. Sa Mei and Tua Sheng's expressions changed drastically. They knew that there was no room for negotiation after Zhuowen's words. With Zong Tuo's vengeful personality, there was no way that he would let Zhuowen go so easily. "Kid, you really do have a death wish. Are you looking down on me?" Zong Tua clenched his fists and looked at Zhuowen with an unfriendly gaze. Chapter 4038. Haha, what an arrogant kid. You've only just arrived at Huxley, and you've already made such arrogant remarks. All right, if I don't beat you to a pulp today, I won't be called Zong Tua. Zong Tua was so angry that he laughed. All the black hair on his body suddenly stood up like steel needles. A terrifying aura burst out from his body. The surrounding air suddenly turned into sharp blades that were piercing to the bone. "Zong Tua, don't mess around. This is the Supreme Temple. Killing is not allowed." Sa Mei's pretty face changed slightly. "Who said I'm going to kill him? I'm just teaching him a lesson. At most, I'll cripple his hands or legs." Zong Tuo's smile became more and more cruel. "Zong Tua, how dare you? How can you be so presumptuous in the Supreme Temple?" Lu Fengyuan stood in front of Zhuowen and scolded. The moment Zhong Tuo saw Lu Fengyuan, his face changed slightly. He lowered his head and said, "Junior Sister Lu, I didn't violate the rules of the Supreme Temple. I remember that the Supreme Temple didn't stipulate that sparring is not allowed." Lu Fengyuan pursed her lips and frowned. She said, "Although there isn't such a rule, sparring requires both parties to agree. You're just bullying senior brother, Zhua." Zhong Tuo's attitude towards Lu Fengyuan was obviously much warmer. His gaze fell on Zhuowen, and he said coldly, "Kid, consider yourself lucky. With junior apprentice Sister Lu protecting you, you can just be a coward. Just wait and see." With that, Zhong Tuo planned to turn and leave. "You want to leave just like that? Or are you afraid?" A calm voice slowly sounded. Zhong Tuo's pupils shrank. He suddenly turned around and looked coldly at Zhuowen. He grinned and said, "Kid, what did you say? Didn't you say you wanted to spar? Then I'll keep you company." Zhuowen's voice was still very calm. Although he didn't want to cause trouble, he wouldn't really be a coward when trouble came looking for him. "Senior brother Zhua, you're crazy. You're no match for Zhong Tuo," Sa Mei quickly said. Tuo Sheng's eyes flashed as he looked deeply at Zhuowen. He didn't know why, but when he saw Zhuowen's calm expression, he felt that this person was unfathomable. Therefore, Tuo Sheng didn't try to persuade him anymore. Instead, he watched silently. Lu Fengyuan turned around and tugged tightly at the corner of Zhuowen's clothes. She lowered her head and looked very aggrieved. Zhuowen smiled and patted Lu Fengyuan's little head. He said, "Junior Sister Lu, don't worry. This comprehensive extension is no match for me." Lu Fengyuan nodded and said, "Senior martial brother Zhua, you can't be too careless. This comprehensive expansion is not to be underestimated." As she spoke, Lu Fengyuan obediently stepped aside. "Brat, you're very brave. I admire you very much. How about this? I'll let you have 3 moves first. I'll give you a chance. If you win, get out of the Supreme Divine Hall and give up your spot in the Supreme Divine Hall. How about that?" Zhong Tuo sneered. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng's expressions changed drastically. The opportunity to cultivate in the Temple of Absolute God was extremely precious. This comprehensive extension was too much. He actually wanted Zhuowen to give up his spot in the Supreme Divine Hall. "What if you lose?" Zhuowen said coldly. Zhong Tuo was stunned. He immediately laughed and said, "Lose? How can I lose to you? That's simply impossible." I said, "What if you lose?" Zhuowen emphasized again. Zhong Tuo was a little angry and said coldly, "If I lose, I'll be like you. Get out of the Supreme Divine Hall and give up my spot." "All right, 1 move. If I can't defeat you in 1 move, then consider it my loss," Zhuowen said. As soon as he said that, there was an uproar. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng were even more incredulous. Is this guy crazy? He actually said that it would be 1 move. That's simply impossible. Zhong Tuo was even more furious. This guy is too despicable. Is he humiliating me? Brat, you're too arrogant. Today, I'll beat the shit out of you. Zhong Tuo rushed towards Zhuowen in large strides. His tower-like body was like a mountain rolling over. Divine Great Peak Tablet Palm. In the blink of an eye, Zhong Tuo appeared in front of Zhuowen. His huge palm, which was like a cattail leaf fan, slammed down fiercely. Boom, 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 boom. Wherever the palm passed, there was a continuous sound of thunder. Waves of black energy rose up and revealed a huge towering mountain in the void. It was as if Zhong Tuo's palm was not a palm, but a huge mountain whose peak could not be seen. Its senior brother Zhong Tuo's strongest superpower, Divine Great Peak Tablet Palm. I'm afraid that this brat will be smashed into meat paste. When the other young cultivators who followed Zong Tuo saw this scene, their faces changed slightly. They all thought that Zhuowen was doomed. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng's faces changed greatly. Even if the two of them faced Zong Tuo's full blow, they would find it difficult to withstand and would most likely be seriously injured. Zhuowen stood quietly in the same place. When the divine Great Peak tablet palm landed in front of him, he suddenly threw out a punch. This punch was ordinary, but it seemed to have transcended time and space. Bang! When the fist and the palm collided, the crowd found that Zong Tuo's huge palm was shattered like a piece of paper. Countless amounts of blood splattered into the air, like a rain of blood. This is your strongest superpower. It's really too weak. Zhuowen's cold and emotionless voice was heard. Then his fist did not stop and landed on Zong Tuo's right shoulder with irresistible force. Zong Tuo's right shoulder exploded, and his flesh and bones exploded into powder. Zong Tuo, on the other hand, was sent flying backward in disbelief. He crashed heavily into the ground several hundred meters away, creating a huge crater. You are actually at the middle stage of the celestial demon change. Zong Tuo raised his head with difficulty and stared at Zhuowen. After saying these words intermittently, he simply fainted. Zhuowen stood in the same place, his clothes fluttering without wind. An aura that was much more powerful than Zong Tuo's rose to the sky like a fan. At first glance, he looked like a god who had descended to the mortal world. As for the surrounding people, they were all dumbfounded. No one had expected that Zong Tuo would really be dealt with in one move, just as Zhuowen had said. Junior sister Sa Mei, Lord Valurium's eyes are indeed sharp. Junior brother, Zhuo deserves to be your senior brother, Tuo Sheng said to Sa Mei with a wry smile. Sa Mei, on the other hand, was deeply shocked. She finally understood her master's good intentions. It turned out that this cheap senior brother that her master had just brought back was actually so powerful. What are you still looking at? If you don't carry him out of the Supreme Temple, he will lose the right to enter the Supreme Temple to listen to the lecture. Zhuowen said to the several cultivators who were stunned by Zong Tuo's words. Only then did they come to their senses. They quickly carried Zong Tuo and left the place with their tails between their legs. Junior sister Sa Mei, senior brother Tuo Sheng, no one will stop you from choosing your residence now. Go and choose your own residence. I'll go in first. Chapter 4039. When Zong Tuo was carried out, 9 kings Hushu emerged from the depths of Supreme Temple. King Ursa, who had been chatting with the other kings, darkened when he saw Zong Tuo beaten black and blue and passed out. What happened to Zong Tuo? King Ursa hurried forward and asked the cultivators carrying Zong Tuo. The cultivators were so frightened that they hurriedly knelt on the ground. Trembling, they recounted everything that had happened in Supreme Temple's backyard. Valurium's first disciple beat him up, and he voluntarily withdrew from Supreme Temple. King Ursa's eyes darkened. He couldn't help but look at King Luke, who was conversing softly with the Imperial Dragon King. King Valurium, aren't you going to say anything about what your disciple did? King Ursa's voice was cold. Luke wasn't afraid. King Ursa, he sneered. Didn't you hear what they said? Your disciple provoked my disciple first, and your disciple was the one who suggested the bet. And now you're asking me for an explanation because your disciple's skills are inferior. How interesting. King Ursa was furious, but quickly calmed down. He understood that Zong Tuo was in the wrong in this matter. He couldn't be overbearing. However, he couldn't just cancel Zong Tuo's spot in Supreme Temple. After all, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. King Ursa glared fiercely at the cultivators carrying Zong Tuo over, then snorted coldly and left with Zong Tuo. King Valurium, your new disciple seems so quiet. I didn't expect him to be so strong. Even Zong Tu wasn't his match. The Imperial Dragon King looked at King Ursa's departing figure with surprise. He knew Zong Tuo's strength very well. Even among Huxley's juniors, Zong Tuo was one of the strongest. At the very least, his disciple Tuo Sheng wasn't Zong Tuo's match. However, King Valurium's new disciple, Zhuowen, was so strong that he could beat Zong Tuo to such a state. The next day, Zhuowen walked out of the house. After a day of cultivation, his cultivation had improved by quite a bit. It had to be said that the energy in the Temple of Absolute God was too dense. It was of great help to his cultivation. Moreover, he could feel that the speed of cultivation here was more than 10 times faster than in the outside world. Right now, I'm not too far away from the late stage of the celestial demon transformation realm. As long as I gain some enlightenment, I'll be able to advance to the next level. Zhuowen muttered to himself as a blazing light burst forth from his eyes. He was very clear that as long as he advanced again, his strength would transform again. Senior Zhua, today is the first day of cultivation in the Absolute Divine Hall. Let's go to the Absolute Divine Hall together. At this moment, in the house next to Zhuowen's, Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng came out and greeted Zhuowen. Zhuowen could clearly feel that Sammy and Tuo Sheng's attitude towards him had changed a lot. The two of them became even more reserved in front of him, and their eyes were filled with reverence. Yes, then, let's go together. Zhuowen nodded and walked in front. Sa, Mei, and Tuo Sheng hurriedly followed behind. Soon, the three of them arrived at the Absolute Divine Hall. The Absolute Divine Hall was very big, and there were rows of spacious black tables inside. At this moment, most of the tables were already occupied. In fact, many of the seats closer to the front had already been occupied. The strange thing was that the 9 tables in the first row were empty. In the hall, many young cultivators were whispering to each other, but no one dared to sit in the first row. Senior Zhua, the first row is specially prepared for the disciples of the 9 kings of Hushu. The others dare not fight for this position. Sa Mei saw the doubt on Zhuowen's face and whispered to Zhuowen in a low voice. Zhuowen nodded and walked straight to the first seat in the first row. Seeing this, Sa Mei's heart skipped a beat, and she hurriedly stepped forward to stop Zhuowen. Senior Zhua, the seats in the first row are also very particular. The positions are arranged according to the ranking of the 9 kings of Hushu. Master is ranked 9th among the 9 kings of Hushu, so we can only take the last seat in the first row, Sa Mei reminded him. In other words, the first seat is prepared for the disciple of the Divine Thunder King. Zhuowen said, Yes, the disciple of the Divine Thunder King, Lei Ling, is the most powerful cultivator among the younger generation in Huxley. Only he can take this seat. Tuo Sheng said, Unfortunately, I've taken a fancy to this position. Zhuowen shook his head. He did not take Lei Ling seriously at all. Instead, he went straight to the first seat and sat down. Suddenly, the entire hall became quiet. Many pairs of eyes involuntarily fell on Zhuowen. Who is this person? How dare he sit in the first row? That's Senior Lei Ling's seat. This person looks very unfamiliar. He is not the disciple of the 9 kings of Hushu. How dare he sit in the first row? Does he want to die? After a moment of silence, the entire hall was in an uproar. Everyone was pointing at Zhuowen's back. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng were stunned. They did not expect Zhuowen to be so bold that he dared to take Lei Ling's seat. When Sa Mei wanted to persuade him, several footsteps were heard at the entrance of the hall. Several figures walked in from outside the hall. These figures were very young, but their auras were extremely vast. They were much more powerful than the rest of the younger generation in the hall, especially the young man in the lead, who was wearing a dark blue armor. On the surface of the armor, there were many engravings. As the engravings lit up, terrifying golden thunderbolts swam around his body like fish. He was the most powerful cultivator among the younger generation, and Huxley, the disciple of the divine Thunder King, Lei Ling. Lei Ling's pupils were dark golden. As his eyes moved, golden thunderbolts flashed in the air. Even the air seemed to explode. Senior Lei Ling, Sa, Mei, and Tuo Sheng's faces changed. They quickly signaled Zhuowen with their eyes, wanting him to leave his seat. Unfortunately, Zhuowen was as still as a mountain. He didn't even look at them. Senior Lei Ling is here. From the looks of it, his cultivation seems to have improved again. We can't see through his current strength at all. Soon, there will be a good show. That reckless guy just took Senior Lei Ling's seat. He will be in trouble later. In the main hall, many people looked at the back of Zhuowen, who was sitting at the front. Their eyes were filled with schadenfreude. The people behind Lei Ling were the other disciples of the 9 kings of Hushu. Among them, Giant Bear King's disciple, Tuo Sheng, was among them. Lei Ling's lips curled into an arrogant smile as he swept his gaze across the hall. Chapter 40. Lei Ling's eyes darkened. How dare this guy? Doesn't he know that the seat belongs to me? The disciples of the 9 kings who were following behind Lei Ling saw the scene as well, especially Zong Tuo. He immediately recognized Zhuowen's identity when he saw Zhuowen's back. He was stunned at first, but then he was overjoyed. He was worried that there was no reason for Lei Ling to attack Zhuowen. Now, Zhuowen was courting death. He took Lei Ling's seat on his first day in the Temple of Ultimate God. He was provoking Lei Ling. Lei Ling snorted and strode towards the first row. Senior brother Lei Ling, Senior brother Zhuo is my master's new disciple. He doesn't know the rules yet. I hope you won't lower yourself to his level. When Lei Ling passed by Sa Mei, the latter mustered her courage and said to Lei Ling acted as if he did not hear anything. His footsteps did not stop at all as he walked straight towards Zhuowen. Sa Mei's pupils shrank, and she clenched her fists tightly. She felt humiliated. She was King Valurium's disciple, but Lei Ling didn't even look her in the eye. He ignored her completely, which made her feel very humiliated. At the same time, she felt a little sad. She was too weak, and King Valurium was the lowest-ranked titled king among the 9 kings. As such, her bloodline was the weakest among the 9 kings. The other 9 kings' bloodlines all looked down on her. Lei Ling walked to Zhuowen's table and said indifferently, "How about this seat?" Zhuowen looked at the young man, who was as sharp as thunder, and said, "What does it have to do with you?" As soon as these words were spoken, the entire hall was in an uproar as if a pot had exploded. Everyone looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. Not only did this guy take Lei Ling's seat, he was still so arrogant. This was simply too arrogant. Zong Tuo was overjoyed. He couldn't help but say, "Zhuowen, you really don't know what's good for you. Do you know who's standing in front of you? He's senior brother Lei Ling, King Divine Thunder's disciple. You, on the other hand, are still so arrogant after occupying his position. Are you tired of living?" Only then did Zhuowen notice the existence of the comprehensive extension. He said indifferently, "Didn't you say that you would give up the opportunity to study after I beat you up like a dog yesterday? Why are you here again today? Or do you want to be taught a lesson again and have a taste of being beaten like a dead dog?" Zong Tuo's face immediately turned ugly. He said fiercely, "Don't be arrogant, kid. Do you really think that you're invincible just because you defeated me by a fluke? In front of Senior Lei Ling, all you can do is talk big. You'll be finished soon." Lei Ling stood in front of the table and looked down at Zhuowen, saying, "Get out of my seat." But before you scram, you need to kneel in front of me, kowtow, and apologize. Everyone looked at Zhuowen gloatingly. They knew that after this nobody realized his mistake. He would definitely follow Lei Ling's instructions and kowtow to him in apology. But Zhuowen only glanced at Lei Ling and said, "Who do you think you are? Are you worthy of me kowtowing and apologizing?" Lei Ling was stunned. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng were stunned. Everyone in the hall was stunned. No one expected that Zhuowen's first words would be so arrogant and overbearing. He did not give Lei Ling any face at all. Lei Ling's face instantly turned ugly. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and said, "Don't you know who I am?" Zhuowen shook his head and said, "Do you think you're worthy of me, knowing who you are?" At this moment, the entire hall was in an uproar. Too arrogant, too arrogant. It was the first time they had seen such an arrogant fellow. He actually dared to say such arrogant words in front of Lei Ling. It's over. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They knew that after Zhuowen said those words, things had reached an irreversible stage. "You're arrogant, but I don't like you, so get out of my seat." Lei Ling was finally enraged. His right hand shot out like lightning and slammed towards Zhuowen's Tianling acupoint. Lei Ling's entire body was emitting blazing golden lightning. These golden lightning were like thin threads that wrapped around his right palm and blasted towards Zhuowen's head. Lei Ling used 80% of his strength in this attack. Under this attack, even an expert at the peak of the demonic transformation would be seriously injured. Many people's faces changed. They knew that Lei Ling was really angry and did not show any mercy. The one who was laughing the happiest was none other than Zong Tuo. Yesterday, he had been taught a lesson by Zhuowen. Today, he only wanted to see Zhuowen being tortured by Zong Tuo. The more Zhuowen was tortured, the better he felt. Zhuowen's expression was calm. He slowly raised his right hand and formed a seal in the air. Lines of obscure formation patterns were created. Then, he accurately grabbed Lei Ling's right hand with his right hand. The formation patterns immediately displayed their power. The terrifying golden lightning in Lei Ling's palm rebounded onto Lei Ling's body with a counterforce. Lei Ling's face changed drastically. The golden lightning in his palm was out of his control and turned into a large golden net that enveloped his entire body. Crackle! The sound of thunder, rumbling, resounded. Lei Ling let out a muffled groan and retreated dozens of steps before stopping in a sorry state. Everyone looked over and was shocked to see that Lei Ling's face was pale. There was a trace of red blood at the corner of his mouth. Who are you?" Lei Ling looked at Zhuowen in disbelief and asked with a gloomy face, "My name is Zhuowen, King Valurium's new disciple. Do you still want to take my seat?" Zhuowen looked at Lei Ling and asked calmly. Lei Ling's face turned green and white. In the end, he silently sat in the second seat beside Zhuowen. Without a doubt, he no longer competed with Zhuowen for the first seat. This also meant that he acknowledged Zhuowen's strength and status. This senior brother Zhua is so strong. Both Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng were dumbfounded, as if they had discovered a new continent. The rest of the people felt the same as Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng. They all felt that this scene was too surreal. Zong Tuo, who was originally arrogant, changed his expression and sat back in his seat. He did not dare to look at Zhuowen. Unfortunately, Zhuowen's gaze had already locked onto Zong Tuo. The latter's hair stood on end. "Have you forgotten about yesterday's bet?" Zhuowen said slowly. Zong Tuo's face was ugly. He stuttered for a long time, but could not say a word. "Are you going to leave by yourself now? Or should I kick you out myself?" Zhuowen's gaze became extremely sharp. It was like a sharp sword that stabbed into Zhong Tuo's heart. Zhong Tuo's face was ugly. "Get lost, or I'll make you leave lying down," Zhuowen shouted. Zhong Tuo trembled all over. In the end, he left the hall with his tail between his legs under everyone's incredulous gaze. At this moment, everyone's gazes when looking at Zhuowen became different. Chapter 40-41. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. The originally noisy hall suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked towards the depths of the hall with hopeful gazes. They all knew that the owner of the footsteps was the long-awaited clan leader of Huxley, Lu Renjue. A slender, middle-aged man appeared in front of everyone. He was dressed in a black and gold robe. His eyes were deep and vast, and his entire person was filled with supreme majesty. He was the clan leader of Huxley, Lu Renjue. "Everyone, welcome to Absolute Divine Hall to listen to my lecture. Everyone here is the elite of the younger generation of Huxley. Your future is limitless." Lu Renjue's voice was low but provocative. As soon as he said that, many young cultivators in the hall felt their blood boiling. Even Lei Ling could not help but clench his fists to show his excitement. Zhuowen only looked at the middle-aged man in front of him indifferently, but his heart was filled with fear. Lu Renjue lived up to his reputation as the strongest member of the Hushu clan. Although he did not release his aura, Zhuowen still felt a great pressure and impact. Without a doubt, to Zhuowen, Lu Renjue was an extremely dangerous person. He was many times stronger than Luke. "In this month, Lu Renjue, will give you a serious lecture. As for how much you can comprehend, that will depend on you." Lu Renjue scanned the entire hall, especially the front row. When he saw an extremely unfamiliar face sitting in the first seat, he could not help but be startled. If he remembered correctly, the first seat had always been occupied by Lei Ling. Now, the first seat had changed hands, and Lei Ling was sitting in the second seat. "What's the meaning of your name?" Lu Renjue suddenly looked at Zhuowen and asked. Lu Renjue was a smart person. He knew that since Zhuowen occupied the first seat and Lei Ling was below him, it meant that this person's strength was very likely not weaker than Lei Ling, or even stronger. Therefore, Lu Renjue's interest in Zhuowen was aroused. As soon as he said that, the entire hall's eyes gathered on Zhuowen. Without a doubt, at this moment, Zhuowen had become the focus of everyone's attention. Lei Ling could not help but look at Zhuowen. However, his gaze was filled with deep jealousy and hatred. It was this fellow who had snatched his position and caused him to lose face in the main hall. And now, Lu Renjue was even asking for his name. This caused Lei Ling's hatred towards Zhuowen to deepen. "Zhuowen, I am King Valurium's new disciple." Zhuowen replied, "Valurium King has accepted a good disciple this time." Lu Renjue nodded. Zhuowen didn't have much of a reaction to these words, but everyone in the hall was in an uproar. Most of them knew Lu Renjue's character. He definitely wouldn't praise others easily. But this time, he actually praised someone, and it was a newcomer who had just arrived. This made many people feel uncomfortable, especially Lei Ling. The jealousy in his eyes grew stronger. Next, Lu Renjue began his lecture. His voice wasn't loud, but it was full of energy. His voice spread throughout the hall like a great bell. He basically talked about the principles and mysteries of the demonic and celestial transformation, explaining what he had comprehended in the demonic and celestial transformation for everyone. Zhuowen silently stopped, as if he had understood something. Lu Renjue was indeed Huxley's strongest cultivator. His understanding of the demonic and celestial transformation far surpassed most of the experts. He had enlightened Zhuowen quite a bit. His cultivation had already reached the mid-stage of the demonic and celestial transformation, and he wasn't far from the late stage. However, he had been unable to break through, mainly because his understanding of the demonic and celestial transformation wasn't deep enough. But Lu Renjue's lecture was like a key that completely unlocked his understanding of the unknown domain of the demonic and celestial transformation. Zhuowen was immersed in his comprehension. Traces of invisible ripples spread out from his body. Most of the young cultivators in the hall were listening to Lu Renjue's lecture, and were also immersed in their own comprehension. But when they felt the ripples, they were all startled awake. They couldn't help but look at the back of Zhuowen, who was sitting at the head of the table. Lei Ling was also startled awake. He looked at Zhuowen in shock and thought to himself, this guy is actually in a state of epiphany. Epiphany was the most difficult state of comprehension to enter. Once one entered it, they would be immersed in their own world, and it was also the time when their cultivation and realm would rise the fastest. Lei Ling's comprehension could be said to be the best among the younger generation in Huxley. But after cultivating for so long, he had only had 2 instances of epiphany, and they were all due to luck and luck. But the way Zhuowen entered the state of epiphany was a little too casual. Just by listening to Lu Renjue's lecture, he had actually entered the state of epiphany. His comprehension was a little too terrifying. Lu Renjue stopped his lecture and looked at Zhuowen in shock. Obviously, Zhuowen's epiphany was beyond his expectations. This guy's comprehension is actually so high. Lu Renjue squinted his eyes and muttered to himself. Soon, Lu Renjue came back to his senses. He instructed everyone not to disturb Zhuowen and continued with his lecture. However, he remembered Zhuowen's name in his heart. Zhuowen's comprehension was something he had never seen before in his life. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng, who were sitting not far away, looked at this scene with surprise. They also didn't expect Zhuowen to be so heaven-defying. He had entered the state of epiphany just by listening to the lecture. Both of them admired Zhuowen from the bottom of their hearts. Time passed slowly. When the lecture ended and everyone was about to leave, a terrifying, thunderous sound was heard. Then, an invisible force suddenly spread out at an unbelievable speed. Instantly, most of the people in the hall were hit by the force and flew out pathetically. Lu Renjue reacted quickly and arrived in front of Zhuowen. With a wave of his sleeve, black energy turned into a black cauldron and enveloped Zhuowen. Zhuowen was seated cross-legged within the large black hall. Wave after wave of powerful purple-gold aura surged out in increasing numbers, forming a shocking wave. In the hall, everyone looked at this scene in shock. They weren't idiots. Naturally, they could tell that Zhuowen had broken through. But this guy's breakthrough caused a huge commotion. He had only broken through a small level, and it had caused such a huge commotion. Lei Ling furrowed his brows and looked deeply at Zhuowen. He could tell that Zhuowen had advanced to the late stage of the celestial demon transformation realm. In other words, he had suffered a great loss at the hands of Zhuowen, who was only in the middle stage of the celestial demon transformation realm. Chapter 4042. Huxley, in the younger generation, only I am the strongest. Lei Ling murmured softly and left the hall without looking back. He had also gained some understanding and planned to go into seclusion immediately. If he could take the final step, he would directly challenge Zhuowen and thoroughly defeat him. It wasn't just Lei Ling. The other disciples of the 9 Kings also felt a sense of danger and went into seclusion. Their masters were all experts ranked much higher than Valurium King. As disciples, they naturally couldn't lose to Valurium King's disciple. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing. Crack! Not long after, the black cauldron collapsed, and turned into countless black powder. Blazing purple gold light shot out like 1,000 rays of light, illuminating the entire hall. Everyone involuntarily took a step back. A powerful aura spread out along with the purple gold light. Many cultivators trembled as if they had met their natural enemy. Lu Renjue's gaze grew brighter and brighter. He stared deeply at Zhuowen, feeling more and more satisfied and gratified. Huxley had actually produced such a talented young descendant. This was Huxley's fortune. Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes, shooting out 2 purple gold rays of light. His heart was filled with excitement. Finally, he had successfully reached the late stage of the demonic transformation. His strength had once again transformed. Only now did Zhuowen realize that Lu Renjue and the others were looking at him strangely. He cupped his fists at Lu Renjue. Although he was in the midst of enlightenment, he knew that Lu Renjue had ordered others not to disturb him. Zhuowen, you're very good. Today's lesson will end here. You may leave. Lu Renjue gave Zhuowen a rare smile and then went into the depths of the hall. Everyone looked at Zhuowen with some jealousy. They knew that Lu Renjue rarely smiled, but today he smiled at Zhuowen. It was clear that Lu Renjue valued Zhuowen greatly. Senior Brother Zhua, you're amazing. The family head seems to be very satisfied with you. Sa Mei hurriedly came to Zhuowen's side, her pair of big eyes filled with worship. Junior Brother Zhua, you've already caught the eye of the patriarch. Your future is limitless. Tua Sheng said enviously. Zhuowen smiled faintly and didn't really care. He had joined Huxley not because he wanted to be part of Huxley, but because he wanted to save Shan Lingyun. Once he rescued Shan Lingyun, he would leave Huxley. No matter how much Lu Renjue valued him, they would eventually be on opposite sides. In the following period of time, Zhuowen entered the Temple of Absolute God on time to cultivate. When night fell, he used the temporary teleportation array that he had set up in the Medicine Divine Pavilion and teleported to the vicinity of the Medicine Divine Pavilion. He continued to explore the array formations and restrictions around the Medicine Divine Pavilion. The formations and restrictions around the Medicine Divine Pavilion were extremely complicated. Furthermore, they were connected to each other and were almost impossible to break. Fortunately, Zhuowen's array formation skills had reached half a step to the eternal level. Without alerting the guards of the Medicine Divine Pavilion, he spent more than 10 days and finally completely broke through the restrictions of the Medicine Divine Pavilion. And he also successfully entered the Medicine Divine Pavilion. It had to be said that there were countless divine medicines in the Medicine Divine Pavilion. All of them were the best of the best. Zhuowen quickly ascended to the top floor of the Medicine Divine Pavilion. Here, he finally saw his ultimate goal of entering the Medicine Divine Pavilion. The divine medicine, limitless longevity, hung high in the air above the top floor of the Medicine Divine Pavilion. Countless densely packed restrictions turned into silk threads that entangled its surface in a complicated manner. What surprised Zhuowen even more was that the body of limitless longevity was a human-shaped root. On the surface of the root, golden tentacles grew. If one counted carefully, there were tens of thousands of tentacles. Although the limitless longevity, divine medicine, was sealed by restrictions. But Zhuowen could still feel the rich medicinal power of limitless longevity from afar. The restrictions on the surface of limitless longevity are even more complicated than the Medicine Divine Pavilion. Looks like it will take a lot of time to completely break it. Zhuowen muttered to himself, feeling rather helpless. The next day, Zhuowen came to the main hall as usual. As for him, he saw an uninvited guest in the palace hall. And this uninvited guest was actually Zong Tua, who had previously left the absolute divine hall with his tail between his legs. At this moment, Zong Tua was obediently following behind the sturdy giant bear king. His head was lowered, and he did not even dare to breathe loudly. Everyone in the main hall also looked at this scene with wary gazes. Everyone understood that the giant bear king came to the absolute divine hall to support Zong Tua. After Zhuowen entered the main hall, everyone's gaze fell on the former. These gazes were filled with surprise, doubt, and also gloating. Zong Tua also noticed Zhuowen. He gave Zhuowen a cold glance, his eyes full of resentment. "You are Zhuowen, right?" The giant bear king also noticed Zhuowen, who came in. He gave Zhuowen a cold glance and asked knowingly, "What's the matter?" Zhuowen asked with a composed expression, "Zong Tua is my disciple. You asked my disciple to get out of the absolute divine hall and let him automatically disqualify himself from further training. I want to ask you, who do you think you are? What qualifications do you have to stop my disciple from entering the absolute divine hall?" The giant bear king's voice was very cold, looking at Zhuowen very unkindly. "If you agree to a bet, you must accept defeat. Since he made a bet with me and lost, then he has to fulfill his promise. Could it be that you, giant bear king, think that going back on your word is a good virtue?" Zhuowen said with a cold smile. The giant bear king was furious. This kid was really unreasonable, actually daring to refute him. "Kid, you are really arrogant enough. You must not know how to respect your elders. Since that's the case, then I will teach you a good lesson on behalf of your master." The giant bear king smiled savagely and walked towards Zhuowen in large strides. Everyone in the hall was in an uproar. No one thought that the giant bear king actually planned to make a move against Zhuowen. Lei Ling, on the other hand, watched this scene silently as a gloating smile appeared on his face. "Giant bear king, what are you trying to do?" Suddenly, a figure walked in from outside the hall with quick steps and blocked in front of Zhuowen. He was precisely the Valurium king, Luke. At this moment, Luke looked at the giant bear king with a furious expression. He did not think that the giant bear king actually came to provoke Zhuowen without permission. This was courting death. "Humph, Valurium king, your disciple bullied people too much. I was just teaching him a lesson on behalf of you. What? Could it be that you have reversed black and white?" The giant bear king said with a cold snort. "I think that the one who has reversed black and white is you. You really don't even want your face anymore." Zhuowen said with a shake of his head. "What did you say?" The giant bear king was furious, and a terrifying aura suddenly erupted. The aura of the ancient star transformation was like a vast ocean spreading throughout the entire hall. Many young cultivators were suppressed to the point that they could not breathe. So powerful. Is this the power of an ancient star transformation? Expert. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng's faces were filled with fear. This aura was too terrifying, and it suppressed them to the point where they could not move an inch. Lei Ling's eyes narrowed. He thought to himself that the ancient star transformation was indeed powerful. One day, he would also achieve the ancient star transformation and successfully be conferred the title of king. Right now, Lei Ling wanted to see how this Zhuowen would get out of this situation. Who is making such a ruckus in the hall? Chapter 4043. Patriarch. Giant Bear King quickly retracted his aura and bowed respectfully to Lu Renjua. "What's going on?" Lu Renjua looked at Giant Bear King and asked. Giant Bear King's eyes flickered and said, "Patriarch, it's like this. This Zhuowen is outrageous. He injured my disciple Zong Tua for no reason and asked him to get out of Supreme Temple without permission. He's gone too far." King Valurium snorted coldly and said, "Patriarch, Giant Bear King is spouting nonsense. It was Zong Tua who provoked him first and proposed a duel. He lost the bet, yet he's blaming it on Zhuo Wen. He's really shameless. King Valurium, I think you're the one spouting nonsense. Giant Bear King quibbled. King Valurium was furious. Enough! Stop arguing. This is Supreme Temple, not your palace. Lu Renjue frowned and said, Giant Bear King and King Valurium did not dare to speak. Lu Renjue's prestige in Huxley was extremely high. The 9 kings did not dare to disobey Lu Renjue's orders, let alone challenge his authority. Zhuowen, is the duel true? Lu Renjue looked at Zhuowen and asked, Patriarch, it's true. Junior sister Sa, Mei, and senior brother Tua Sheng know about the duel. They were there at the time. Zhuowen said. Then Sa, Mei, and Tua Sheng came forward to exonerate Zhuowen, recounting what happened in Supreme Temple's backyard. Nonsense! Patriarch, they colluded with each other. Don't listen to their nonsense. Zong Tua quickly said, Shut up. Do you think I can't tell if it's nonsense or not? Zong Tua, since you're the one who proposed the duel, and you lost, you can leave. You don't have to come to Supreme Temple this time. Lu Renjue said indifferently. Zong Tuo's face was pale and dejected. He knew that he had completely lost his chance. The Giant Bear King also had an ugly expression on his face. He wanted to defend Zong Tuosheng, but after being glared at by the Lu people, he didn't dare to say a word. Giant Bear King, take your disciples and leave this place. I'm going to start my lecture. Lu Renjue ordered. The Bear King sighed in his heart. He glanced coldly at Zhuowen before reluctantly leaving with Zong Tua. Master, the Giant Bear King is narrow-minded and vengeful. You must be careful. Valurium King whispered these words to Zhuowen before leaving the temple. As for the people in the hall, they were discussing in low voices. They could tell that Lu Renjue was obviously siding with Zhuowen. Lei Ling's eyes flashed with jealousy. He could tell that Zhuowen valued Lu Ren more than he had expected. I have to break through as soon as possible and defeat this Zhuowen fair and square. Lei Ling secretly made up his mind. He wasn't far from breaking through. He only needed to listen to Lu Renjue's lecture for a while more, and he was confident that he could successfully break through. After Lu Renjue had Zhuowen sit down, he continued to explain today's lesson. The content of today's lesson was actually some information about the great carefree realm. In the hall, many young cultivators perked up their ears to listen. The great carefree realm, to them, was the legendary supreme realm. Lu Renjue was recognized as the strongest cultivator by Huxley, but even he hadn't reached this realm. The great carefree realm is above the Heavenbreaker realm. Those who have reached this realm have truly jumped out of the realm and aren't bound by the 5 elements, roaming free and unfettered. When Lu Renjue said this, his eyes also revealed a yearning look. Patriarch, what realms are there in the great carefree realm? Lei Ling was also full of yearning, and he couldn't help but ask. In the hall, everyone looked at Lu Renjue expectantly. Even Zhuowen couldn't help but perk up his ears to listen. Although he knew that there was a great carefree realm, he didn't know the specific division of realms. The great carefree realm is divided into 5 major realms, namely the great calamity of heaven and earth, universal law, reverse ancient starlight, lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, and all techniques return to one. Each major realm has a shocking ability and is very terrifying. And after the great carefree realm, the cultivation method will also undergo earth-shaking changes. Even the cultivation method will completely change, and it won't be the same as before the Heavenbreaker realm. Lu Renjue said in a low voice, Patriarch, I heard from my master that the cultivation of the great carefree realm is introspective cultivation, but he didn't tell me the specifics. I hope the patriarch can enlighten me, Lei Ling asked excitedly. It's not that the Divine Thunder King didn't make it clear, but he didn't want you to know so early. You are all the future pillars of Huxley, so it's okay to tell you this. Lu Rinjue's face became more and more serious, and he continued, I said that the cultivation method of the great carefree realm has undergone earth-shaking changes. The biggest feature is the cultivation method of introspection, which breeds the world of heaven and earth in the body. Only after the world of heaven and earth is born can you visualize a powerful God in the world of heaven and earth and obtain great power from the God, thus achieving true great carefree realm. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the hall was shocked. The cultivation method of the great carefree realm was too strange. It actually required one to breed the world of heaven and earth in the body and then visualize a powerful God and obtain power from the God to achieve great carefree realm. Zhuowen was also shocked. This kind of cultivation method was something he had never heard of or seen before. It was truly too miraculous. And to achieve the great carefree realm, the cultivation method is a crucial part. The cultivation method of the great carefree realm is called the introspection method, Lu Rinjue said with a smile. Silence reigned in the hall. Everyone's thoughts were wandering, and they were secretly fantasizing. The great carefree realm, in everyone's eyes, was extremely mysterious and distant. Now, Lu Rinjue's words had lifted the mysterious veil of the great carefree realm. It also made them yearn fervently for this realm. Patriarch, is there an expert of the great carefree realm in our Huxley domain? Suddenly, Zhuowen, who had been silent, opened his mouth. Everyone's expression changed slightly. This Zhuowen really did not know what was taboo. Lu Rinjue was the strongest expert of Huxley, but he had not reached this realm. How could there be such an expert in the Huxley domain? Lu Rinjue's expression suddenly became serious, and he said in a low voice, There is. Everyone in the hall was in an uproar. Everyone looked at Lu Rinjue in surprise. Lu Rinjue's expression was calm as he continued, Huxley, am a colossus of the Huxley domain, the ruler of the Huxley domain on the surface. But where there is light, there is darkness. In fact, there are many peerless experts hidden in the dark. Chapter 4044. Lei Ling's pupils shrank, and he could not help but blurt out, I once heard my master say that the domain guardian is a peerless expert who secretly guards the domain. He appears and disappears unpredictably, and is extremely mysterious. Lu Rinjue nodded approvingly at Lei Ling, and continued, There are countless creatures in the 100 domains outside the domain. Although there are occasional domain wars, they are all controlled to a certain extent. The main reason is because of the existence of the domain guardian. Every domain has a corresponding domain guardian. They hide in the dark, silently observe the development of the domain, and formulate the rules of the domain to maintain the order between the domains. Without the domain guardian, the 100 domains outside the domain would become extremely chaotic, and countless domains would experience earth-shattering events, great wars. It would also be impossible for there to be the current peace. Zhuowen revealed a thoughtful look. It seemed that the complexity of the forces outside the 100 domains was far beyond his imagination. The domain guardian is detached from worldly affairs and rarely interferes in the affairs of the domain. It is only when there is a real conflict between domains that the domain guardian will intervene. Once upon a time, the Panga domain was a rather powerful domain among the 100 domains, but because their domain guardian mysteriously disappeared, the Panga domain, which had lost its domain guardian, was like a warrior who had lost his weapon and was immediately silenced by the surrounding domains. The Pangu clan was basically slaughtered, and there was not much left. Therefore, the Domain Guardian is our protector. You must respect and fear that existence. When Lu Renjue mentioned the Domain Guardian, his eyes were full of seriousness and respect. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. He finally knew why the Panga domain was destroyed. It was because the Domain Guardian of the Panga domain was missing and was jointly destroyed by the other domains. Speaking of which, when Zhuowen was roaming the starry sky, he had obtained the inheritance of Panyu, which was why he was able to rise so quickly. If he could truly establish himself in the 100 domains outside the domain, he would definitely avenge the blood feud of the Pangu domain back then. The Domain Guardian of our Huxley domain. Is he also a member of Huxley? Lei Ling asked excitedly. Yes, he is one of Huxley's ancestors. He has existed for a very long time, and we at Huxley also have an introspection method. Lu Renjue smiled faintly and said, if you concentrate on your cultivation and continue to contribute to me, Huxley, you will have a chance to cultivate this kind of insight technique. Everyone was in an uproar. No one had expected that Huxley would hide a great carefree realm introspection method. Many young cultivators secretly made up their minds to cultivate diligently and strive to obtain the qualifications to practice this insight technique. As expected of the largest power in the Hushu realm, they actually possess the insight technique. Zhuowen nodded to himself, but he did not really care. The primordial arts he cultivated was of an extremely high level. After he gathered 3 primordial stones, he had already peeked into the great carefree realm's internal visualization technique. Plus, the insight techniques he possessed were definitely of a much higher level than those in Huxley's collection. Next, Lu Renjue continued his lecture, and everyone in the hall listened even more attentively. They were all encouraged by Lu Renjue's words, and their emotions surged with excitement. Another 10 days passed, and there was not much time left to cultivate in the Supreme Divine Hall, and Zhuowen had also completely cracked the restrictions on the surface of the limitless longevity during the last period of time. He restored the restrictions on the Medicine Divine Pavilion and the limitless longevity, and left his deciphering restrictions inside. In the future, if he wanted to enter the Medicine Divine Pavilion to seize the limitless longevity, he only needed to think, and the restrictions on the surface would be broken by him. The myriad longevity boundless divine medicine was within easy reach to him right now. On the last day of his cultivation in the Supreme Divine Hall, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly erupted from the backyard of the Supreme Divine Hall. This aura was like a sharp sword that suddenly soared into the sky, as if it could split the entire sky. Accompanying this aura was an extremely terrifying golden thunderbolt. It was densely packed, like countless intertwining threads, and extremely complex as it spread across the entire sky. Everyone in the Supreme Divine Hall was alarmed by this majestic aura. One figure after another flew out and looked at the terrifying scene in the sky above the backyard. Even the clan leader, Lu Renjue, was alarmed. The 9 lords and the 3 great protectors came out of seclusion and rushed over. Golden Divine Thunderbolt looks like Lei Ling has broken through. Lu Renjue looked at the densely packed Golden Thunderbolt and muttered to himself. The 9 lords and the 3 great protectors landed beside Lu Renjue. They naturally recognized the owner of this aura. Wasn't it Lei Ling, the disciple of the Divine Thunder King? Ha ha! God Thunder King, congratulations! Lei Ling has broken through again. He was originally in the advanced stage of the celestial demon transformation realm, and now that he has broken through again, he has reached the peak of the celestial demon transformation realm. His future is limitless. Giant Bear King quickly congratulated the Divine Thunder King, who was standing aside with a calm expression. The other 9 lords also noticed this and congratulated the Divine Thunder King. The smile on the Divine Thunder King's face grew wider. He had always trusted this disciple of his. As for Lei Ling, he had never let him down. Among the younger generation of the Hushu clan, he had always been outstanding and had lived up to his expectations. Lei Ling was just lucky. Everyone's disciples are also dragons and phoenixes among men. The Divine Thunder King naturally had to be courteous. However, the smile on his face did not disappear at all. The other 9 kings were filled with envy. They knew their own limitations and knew that there was still a big gap between their disciples and Lei Ling. However, the Divine Thunder King left them some face, which made them have a good impression of him. Zhuowen was also alarmed by the huge commotion. He left the courtyard and looked up. He saw the densely packed golden thunderbolt in the sky. Senior brother Zhuo, Lei Ling has broken through. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng also came out from the courtyard next door. They looked at the scene with concern. Junior brother Zhuo, Lei Ling is not very forgiving. Now that he has successfully broken through, he may find trouble with you. You have to be careful. Tuo Sheng said worriedly. Zhuowen smiled and said, "It doesn't matter to me whether he is broken through or not. He is no match for me." Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They naturally did not take Zhuowen's words to heart. They subconsciously thought that Zhuowen was boasting. Although they knew that Lei Ling had suffered a little in the hands of Zhuowen in the ultimate divine hall, they were still shocked. They did not think that Lei Ling was inferior to Zhuowen because of this. After all, Lei Ling was the strongest among the younger generation in Huxley. He had a lot of weight in their hearts. Chapter 40-45. Soon, the thunder died down, and the golden lightning in the sky faded away. A figure rushed out from the backyard and floated in the air, bathed in golden lightning. It was Lei Ling. At this moment, Lei Ling's eyes were brimming with energy, and he was overjoyed. He had finally reached the peak of the celestial demon change realm. No one in the younger generation of Huxley could surpass him. "Disciple, come here." Divine Thunder King smiled and sent a secret voice transmission to Lei Ling, who was still excited. Only then did Lei Ling notice the 9 kings. Not only that, but the patriarch Lu Rinjue and the 3 mysterious guardians were also shocked by his breakthrough. Lei Ling did not dare to be negligent. He quickly went forward and bowed respectfully. "Ha! A great teacher indeed produces a great disciple. Divine Thunder King, your talent back then was already peerless. Your disciple Lei Ling is even better." Lu Rinjue was very happy. To him, the more talents in Huxley, the better. The other 9 kings also hurriedly praised Lei Ling's talent, and the like. A complacent smile appeared on Lei Ling's face as he looked down from the corner of his eye. They saw that many young cultivators in the backyard of the temple were in awe and fear. This made him even more proud. Soon, he noticed Zhuowen's figure standing in a remote corner. He wanted to see Zhuowen's expression and see how interesting it would be. Unfortunately, Zhuowen's expression was very calm. It was as if Lei Ling's breakthrough was nothing to him. Lei Ling's eyes darkened, and he became more and more annoyed with Zhuowen. "Patriarch, can you allow me to spar with a junior brother on the temple?" Lei Ling suddenly cupped his fists and asked. Lu Rinjue and the others looked at Lei Ling in surprise. They did not expect that Lei Ling, who had just broken through, would want to spar with someone. He wanted to establish his authority in front of the younger generation. Lu Rinjue was a little displeased. He felt that Lei Ling was showing off too much. In terms of temperament, he was a little dissatisfied. God Thunder King said, "Clan leader, it's good for both the challenger and the challenged. We can learn from each other's experience and lessons. I think Lei Ling's suggestion is not bad. Divine Thunder King is right. A spar is voluntary. As long as someone is willing to accept Lei Ling's challenge, I think it's not a bad idea." Giant Bear King suddenly said, "I also think it's a good idea." Divine Weapon King Su Hao, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. Everyone looked at the stern-looking Divine Weapon King in astonishment. They did not expect the Divine Weapon King to speak. Among the 9 kings of Hushu, King Shunbing was second only to King Shunlei. He was a man of few words, but no one dared to ignore his existence. After all, with the strength and status of a divine armament king, his words carried a lot of weight. Valurium King Luke's brows were tightly knit together. He'd had a bad feeling when Lei Ling had proposed the challenge. Could it be that Lei Ling wanted to challenge Zhuowen? If that's the case, Luke had to stop it. He was not worried about Zhuowen, but Lei Ling's life. He had witnessed Zhuowen's strength. Lei Ling was courting death if he wanted to challenge Zhuowen. Lu Renjue nodded when he saw that the other 9 kings had agreed to the suggestion. He was curious. Lei Ling wanted to find someone to spar with as soon as he made a breakthrough. Who would he pick? "Lei Ling, who is your opponent?" Lu Renjue asked. Lei Ling's smile widened. He looked at Luke and said, "My opponent is Valurium King's new disciple, Zhuowen. Today, he was going to take revenge for the loss he suffered in Divine Temple." "Oh, it's Zhuowen." Lu Renjue was surprised. He had a deep impression of Zhuowen. Zhuowen had snatched Lei Ling's first place when he was cultivating. He even entered a state of enlightenment and made a breakthrough. He did not need to think to know that Lei Ling and Zhuowen had a conflict because of this. Judging from the results, Lei Ling was at a disadvantage and was at a disadvantage. Now that Lei Ling had brought this up, it was obvious that he wanted to get back at them. The other 9 kings had also heard of Zhuowen. After all, some of the things that Zhuowen had done during his advanced studies were quite sensational. No matter how uninformed they were, they had still vaguely heard of Zhuowen's deeds. Divine Thunder King was calm. He smiled and said to the restless Luke, "Valurium King, it's a little presumptuous, but since Lei Ling wants to challenge your disciple, I don't think you'll refuse, right?" Luke frowned and said resolutely, "No, absolutely not." Divine Thunder King frowned and said with displeasure, "Valurium King, are you that unconfident in your disciple? I've heard that your disciple has done a lot of great things since he entered the Supreme Divine Hall. Even the Patriarch praised your disciple. Where's his talent?" Giant Bear King said ambiguously, "Valurium King, are you afraid? That won't do. When he challenged my disciple, Zong Tua, he was unstoppable. Now your opponent is Lei Ling, and you're scared?" The other 9 kings also couldn't help but look at Luke. They could see that Luke's face was filled with shock and panic. They couldn't help but think that Luke had a guilty conscience. Lu Renjue also thought that Luke was overreacting. It was just a competition. Why was he so worried? It's not like that. Lei Ling can't challenge Zhuowen. He's definitely not a match for Zhuowen. If he challenges Zhuowen, his life might be in danger. Luke said with a wry smile. The moment these words were spoken, the expressions of Lu Renjue and the others froze. Lei Ling, who was complacent, looked gloomy. Divine Thunder King snorted. "Valurium King, aren't you overestimating your disciple? Lei Ling has just reached the peak of the divine demon transformation realm, and your disciple is only at the late stage. How dare you say that my disciple will be in danger if he challenges your disciple? What a joke!" Lu Renjue frowned. Valurium King, this joke isn't funny. Although Lu Renjue thought highly of Zhuowen and believed that Zhuowen's talent was superb, Lei Ling was not weak either. However, Lei Ling wasn't bad either. Yet, according to King Valurium's words, Lei Ling seemed to be so weak that he was no match for Zhuowen at all. Luke shook his head and said, Zhuowen is much more powerful than you all imagine. Lei Ling really isn't his match at all. If he really faces Zhuowen, Lei Ling's life will be in danger. Patriarch, you have to believe me. Chapter 4046. Just as Luke was about to speak, Lu Renjue interrupted him. No need to quarrel. Since you all think that your disciple is trying to snatch it, why don't we let the two of them spar to see who is stronger? Lu Renjue said, The clan leader is indeed wise. Divine Thunder King smiled. Lei Ling also smiled. He was extremely confident in himself and did not think that Zhuowen would be his match. However, it depends on whether Zhuowen accepts your challenge or not. If he doesn't, you can't force him. Lu Renjue continued, Don't worry, clan leader. Sparring is a matter of mutual consent. I won't force him. Lei Ling cupped his fists and landed in front of Zhuowen's courtyard in the backyard of Ultimate Divine Hall. Since Lei Ling, King God Thunder, Lu Renjue, and the others didn't conceal their conversation, everyone in the backyard knew what they were talking about. I didn't expect senior brother Lei Ling to spar with Zhuowen as soon as he made a breakthrough. Looks like he's in big trouble. The peak of the celestial demon change realm. He's not far from the ancient star change realm. Zhuowen is indeed a genius, but compared to senior brother Lei Ling, there's still a big gap. The people in the backyard were discussing animatedly. Everyone's gaze involuntarily fell on Zhuowen. Zhuowen stood where he was and looked indifferently at Lei Ling, who was slowly approaching him. He sneered in his heart. This Lei Ling really didn't want to take the path to heaven and insisted on barging into hell. He actually dared to provoke him. He was simply courting death. Senior brother Lei Ling, you've just made a breakthrough and your cultivation is higher than senior brother Zhua. Yet, you want to challenge him. Isn't that too much? Sa Mei stood out and questioned in a deep voice. Lei Ling said disdainfully, I'm just looking for senior brother Zhua to spar. If he doesn't dare, he can say it out loud and kneel on the ground and admit that he's inferior to me. Then I won't challenge him. As he spoke, Lei Ling looked at Zhuowen provocatively. Sa Mei was so angry that her shoulders trembled. Lei Ling's request was too much. It was trampling on Zhuowen's dignity. Zhuowen would definitely not accept it. Suddenly, a hand patted Sammy's shoulder. Sammy turned around and saw Zhuowen's smiling face. Junior sister Sa Mei, you don't have to worry too much. If I want to deal with this kind of trash, it won't take any effort at all. Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Sa Mei was completely dumbfounded. Zhuowen's words were a little too arrogant. Lei Ling was Huxley's number one among the younger generation. How did he become such trash in Zhuowen's eyes? It was as if in Zhuowen's words, Lei Ling was just a passerby who was not worth mentioning at all. Lei Ling was enraged. He suppressed his anger and said coldly, Junior Zhua, since you are so confident, do you accept the challenge? Accept the challenge? You don't have the qualifications for me to accept your challenge. Scram! Zhuowen shook his head and suddenly sent a palm strike towards Lei Ling. Immediately, a substantial purplish gold energy condensed into a huge palm in the air. The purplish gold palm was so huge that it instantly covered the entire Supreme God Hall. Lei Ling snorted coldly, and blazing golden lightning exploded around him. You are really arrogant. Do you think this kind of ordinary attack can threaten me? What a joke! Lei Ling mocked him mercilessly. Then he charged out like a god of war and was bathed in golden lightning. Today, I will show you my true power and let you know how insignificant you are. Lei Ling's loud voice rang in the air. Then, he threw a punch, and endless golden lightning formed a fist radiance that was 100 feet long. The fist radiance shot up to the sky with unparalleled power and blasted towards the purplish gold palm that was descending. Wow, this is Senior Lei Ling's strongest superpower, Gold God Fist. This superpower is extremely powerful. It is said that Senior Lei Ling was at the peak of the God Territory transformation stage and killed an expert at the initial stage of the Celestial Demon transformation stage with one punch. The people in the backyard kept exclaiming. At the same time, they kept retreating to a safe area. Lei Ling was like a god of war as he approached the purplish gold palm that was descending. When the fist radiance and the palm collided, there was an earth-shattering explosion. The entire sky was stained with gold and purplish gold. The light was so dazzling that it was impossible to open one's eyes. Then, everyone saw in disbelief that Lei Ling's strongest superpower, Gold God Fist, was destroyed upon contact. The purple gold palm, which did not seem to have much power, continued to descend like a hot knife through butter, heavily smashing onto Lei Ling's body. Lei Ling spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground in a sorry state. The purplish gold palm was like a huge mountain that pressed down on Lei Ling and pressed him deep into the ground. When the light faded, everyone was shocked to find that on the empty ground in front of the backyard, there was a huge palm-shaped pit that was close to 100 feet in size. Zhuowen, one of the main characters of this battle, was standing silently at the edge of the pit with his hands behind his back. He was not injured at all. Lei Ling, I have said that you are still too weak and not qualified to challenge me. Zhuowen's leisurely voice rang out slowly and spread in the air, gently reverberating. Everyone was petrified as they looked at the scene in disbelief. What the F***? Lei Ling had just reached the peak of the demonic god transformation and was in high spirits. He wanted to teach Zhuowen a lesson, but was slapped down by the latter. They did not know if he was dead or alive. This must be an illusion. After repeated confirmation, they had to accept that what had happened in front of them was real. At this moment, everyone looked at Zhuowen as if they had seen a ghost. Their eyes were filled with fear. Mei was also dumbfounded. She didn't expect the final result to be like this. It was just like a dream. Lu Rinjue, God Thunder King, and the rest of the onlookers were also stunned. Of course, King Valurium was an exception. He knew Zhuowen very well and naturally knew how strong Zhuowen was. My disciple! God Thunder King's eyes suddenly turned red. He turned into a ray of light and rushed into the pit. After a while, God Thunder King appeared from the pit again. He was holding Lei Ling, who was on the verge of death. At this moment, Lei Ling was in a sorry state. His body was in tatters and his flesh was cracked. Divine blood was spilling out. Fu, you must avenge me. Lei Ling gripped God Thunder Emperor's hand tightly and spat out the words with difficulty. He was unwilling and resentful. He was supposed to be in the limelight. Why did it turn out like this? My disciple, don't talk. Take this elixir. God Thunder King quickly took out a top-grade healing elixir and gave it to Lei Ling. The latter's breath stabilized, and his injuries were under control. Chapter 4047. Zhuowen looked at God Thunder King coldly and said, if I wanted to kill him, he would be a corpse now. Lei Ling was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Zhuowen's words were seriously too infuriating. This was blatantly looking down on him. God Thunder King's face darkened. He shouted, Junior, you're too arrogant. Don't you have any manners when talking to me? Kneel down before you speak. Zhuowen sneered. God Thunder King was so arrogant that he wanted him to kneel down. You're not kneeling down? You want to offend your superior? God Thunder King stared at Juoen fiercely. A vast aura burst out from his body. Everyone in the surroundings retreated to a safe distance. God Thunder King was the leader of the 9 kings. His strength was terrifying. They did not dare to be implicated by Juoen. God Thunder King, don't go too far. Your disciple, Lei Ling, challenged Juoen first. Now that he has lost, do you still want to bully him? Luke stood in front of Juoen and said in a gloomy voice, Bully him? Valurium King, don't slander me. It's your disciple who disrespected me. I'm just giving him a proper punishment. God Thunder King said coldly, All right. Today's battle was wonderful. It's my honor to have such talented young geniuses like Lei Ling and Juoen in Huxley. You two should be grateful instead of picking on each other like this. Where's your manners? Lu Renjue finally opened his mouth to speak. His words were very skillful. He pointed out the main point of the conflict between the two of them and cleverly resolved it. At the same time, he gave them a way out. Since Lu Renjue had spoken, God Thunder King and Valurium King would not continue to quarrel. The Ghost King Ridge is about to open. This is a grand event for Huxley. It's also a rare opportunity for the younger generation. I hope you all can perform well this time. And this time, the Ghost King Ridge is not simple. Some big shots will come. Lu Renjue glanced at the people in the backyard and said slowly, Big shots. Everyone was talking about it. They were very curious about the big shots that Lu Renjue mentioned. Unfortunately, Lu Renjue only mentioned it casually and didn't go into detail. No one dared to ask in detail. All right, let's disperse. I hope you all can perform well when the Ghost King Ridge opens. After Lu Renjue finished speaking, he left with the 3 guardians, the young cultivators in the backyard. Led by their masters, they left of the Divine of Supreme Palace. Luke, Zhuo and Sammy decided to return to the 90th level of Hushu City and wait for the opening of Ghost King Ridge. Master, who are the big shots that the Patriarch mentioned? On the way back, Sa Mei could not hold back her curiosity and asked Valurium King Luke. Luke's expression immediately turned solemn, and he said in a low voice, The 3 clan leaders of the Jinshui clan, Shenyan clan, and Purple Fantasy clan from the borders of the Hushu realm are coming to our Hushu Divine City. It is said that they have brought their juniors with them, and they also want to enter the Ghost King realm. Training in the Ridge. Sa Mei was shocked. She said, The Jinshui clan, God's Eye, and Purple Mirage, aren't they the rulers of the 3 neighboring realms of our Hushu realm? Our relationship with them is not that good, is it? Luke said worriedly, Our Huxley realm does not have a good relationship with the 3 realms. It's said that they came together to discuss the realm war. You know, the realm war is held every once in a while. This time, it's said that the 3 great clans have joined forces. If the realm war starts, the forces of the 3 realms will join forces to attack our Huxley realm. Without a doubt, our Hushu domain will be in a very passive position. This time, the 3 great clans came together with the intention of the clan leader to invite them. Their goal is to negotiate about the domain war. Zhuowen frowned slightly. From Luke's tone, he could tell that the Huxley realm was not in a good situation. Moreover, the 3 clan leaders came together. Was this not inviting a wolf into the house? If the 3 great clans made any strange moves, Huxley Divine City would be immediately attacked from the inside. Luke saw Sa Mei and Zhuowen frown and guessed what they were thinking. Don't worry. The clan leader has his own plans. The 3 clan leaders came together, but they were only allowed to bring a small number of people. The clan leader has also contacted the Realm Guardian. He will also come to Huxley Divine City. coupled with the powerful formation restrictions of Huxley Divine City, even if the three clan leaders make any strange moves, they can't do anything. Luke said with a smile. That's true. The clan leader is meticulous and farsighted. It's impossible that he didn't think of this. May sighed softly. Zhuowen was still frowning, slightly. He had a feeling that things were not so simple. After that, Zhuowen basically stayed in the colored glaze palace on the 90th floor of Huxley Divine City to cultivate. As time passed, the time for the opening of Ghost King Ridge gradually approached. Huxley Divine City became more and more lively. On the day before the opening of Ghost King Ridge, the three clan leaders of the Jinshui clan, God's Eye, and Purple Mirage came together with a group of people. The arrival of the three great clans caused a great commotion in Huxley Divine City. Many Huxley realm cultivators discussed animatedly, and all of them had a cautious look on their faces. Huxley realm had developed for so many years, and there had been many conflicts and battles with the three great realms. What everyone did not know was that at the same time as the arrival of the three great clans, an insignificant and mysterious figure had also arrived in Huxley Divine City. However, this figure was too ordinary and basically did not attract anyone's attention. In the depths of Absolute Divine Hall, Lu Renjue sat quietly on the throne. His right hand was supporting his forehead, and he was deep in thought. There was clearly a trace of worry on his face. Thud, thud, thud. Light footsteps slowly reverberated in the depths of the hall, breaking Lu Renjue's deep thoughts. Lu Renjue looked up and found that a mysterious figure covered in a black robe had appeared in front of the hall. This figure wore a huge hood, and even his face was covered. It was impossible to see his face clearly. Lu Renjue, long time no see. The mysterious figure stopped, and a low and hoarse voice slowly sounded. This voice was obviously very ordinary, but hearing it caused one's heart to tremble, as if the depths of one's soul had been ruthlessly struck by a large hammer. Lu Renjue's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly stood up, walked in front of this person, and knelt on one knee. Lu Renjue greets the ancestor. Lu Renjue said respectfully, "Rise." The mysterious figure lifted his hood, revealing a face covered in wrinkles. This was a white-haired old man, and many dim-age spots could be seen on his face. However, his eyes were as bright as the stars. Chapter 4048. Ancestor, the Jinshui clan, God's Eye, and Purple Mirage have come with ill intentions. What do you think I should do? Lu Renjue asked cautiously. If it's only the clan leader, there's no need to worry. With me guarding Hushu City, the three clans won't be able to cause any trouble. What I'm worried about is the involvement of the three realm guardians. That would be troublesome. Lu Yuanba said with a frown. Then what should we do? Lu Renjue was most afraid of the three realm guardians interfering in this matter. Although his ancestor was powerful, the three realm guardians of the Jinshui realm, God's Eye realm, and Purple Mirage realm were not weak. Lu Yuanba said indifferently, "Don't worry, the three of them haven't made any moves yet. I'm afraid that the three clans have come with the intention of negotiating sincerely." Lu Yuanba's words were like a reassuring pill, completely relieving Lu Renjue of his worries. "Renjue, you can go now. I'll leave the matter of the three clans to you. I hope you won't disappoint me." Lu Yuanba said indifferently. Lu Renjue respectfully agreed, and then slowly retreated. The next day, Zhuowen sat cross-legged on a futon in his room. His hands were constantly forming seals, and incorporeal formation patterns appeared in the air around him. These formation markings were extremely numerous and dense like fish scales as they coiled around his body and formed layer after layer of extremely strange defensive layers. Suddenly, Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and these complicated formation patterns disappeared as if they were blown away by the wind. Zhuo Wen's eyes flickered with bright light as he muttered in a low voice, "The Heavenmend catalog is truly miraculous. Even though it's incomplete, it possesses unimaginable benefits to my cultivation in the Tao of formations." Zhuowen was in a good mood. As he continued to comprehend the heaven-patching catalog, his understanding of array Tao became deeper and deeper. He believed that if he continued to comprehend at this rate, his array Tao level would break through again, and he would cross the half-step eternal realm. Just as Zhuowen was immersed in his thoughts, there was a knock on the door. "Senior Brother Zhua, today is the opening day of Ghost King Ridge. We should set off." Outside the door, Sa Mei's voice sounded. Zhuowen got up, opened the door, and followed Sa Mei out of the colored glass palace. Valurium King Luke had been waiting outside for a long time. Luke looked at the calm Zhuowen with a complicated look in his eyes. He knew that when Zhuowen entered the Ghost King Ridge, he would take action and rescue Shan Lingyun. Once Shan Lingyun was rescued, Lu Renjue would immediately realize Zhuowen's motive, and he would also be implicated. "Luke, if you're smart, you should leave Hushu City as soon as the Ghost King Ridge opens." Along the way, Luke was absent-minded. Suddenly, Zhuowen's voice transmission sounded in his mind. Luke glanced at Zhuowen and said hesitantly, "Master, my disciple Sammy, don't worry, I'll make sure she doesn't die. You'd better take care of yourself first." Zhuowen said indifferently. Luke sighed softly. He knew that this was the only thing he could do. The Ghost King Ridge was located in the 100th level of Hushu City, in a huge rift valley hundreds of thousands of feet away from God Extinction Mountain. The Rift Valley was endless, and it was hundreds of thousands of feet long. Inside it, there was a black fog that was as black as ink. This black fog was very strange. Even the divine sense could not extend very far inside. This was the Ghost King Ridge. It was said that a terrifying Ghost King was sealed there. There were many evil spirits inside, and there were even more terrifying spirits in the depths. Of course, there were also countless treasures in the Ghost King Ridge, and it was rich with chaotic energy. It was said that the speed of cultivation in the Ghost King Ridge was 100 times faster than the outside world. Because of this, it attracted many of the younger generation of Huxley City. Even many of the older generation were eager to enter the Ghost King Ridge to cultivate. Of course, there were many restrictions and conditions for the older generation to enter the Ghost King Ridge. The opening of the Ghost King Ridge was mainly for the younger generation of Huxley City. Outside the entrance of the Ghost King Ridge was a large open space, surrounded by strange black rocks. Lu Renjue and the 3 guardians were already waiting in the open space. The Divine Thunder King, the Divine Weapon King, the Giant Bear King, and the other 9 kings were also present. They each brought their own disciples. In addition to them, many of the younger generation who wanted to participate in the Ghost King Ridge trial had already lined up neatly in the open space. They were whispering to each other excitedly. Luke, Zhuowen, and the other 2 were the last group to arrive. Especially when Zhuowen came to the open space, Lei Ling, Zhong Tuo, and the other disciples of the 9 kings all stared at him with sharp eyes. Not only the disciples of the 9 kings, but the rest of the younger generation of cultivators also focused their eyes on Zhuowen. Zhuowen's performance in God Extinction Hall was too shocking. He had seriously injured the strongest cultivator of the younger generation, Lei Ling, with just 1 slap. It was obvious how terrifying his strength was. Many young cultivators regarded Zhuowen as a great enemy. Zhuowen, on the other hand, was calm and collected. He did not take the younger generation seriously at all. After Luke and the other 2 returned to their positions, Lu Renjue began to speak. "Everyone, do you remember what I said in God Extinction Hall a few days ago? Some big shots will come to the opening of the Ghost King Ridge. And these big shots are the Jinshui clan, God's Eye, and Purple Mirage clan leaders. They also brought their juniors with them and planned to enter the Ghost King Ridge. As soon as these words came out, the crowd was in an uproar. They naturally knew about the Jinshui clan, God's Eye, and Purple Mirage clan. They were Huxley's neighbors right next to the Hushu region. No one expected that people from the three great clans would actually come. This was truly rare. At the same time, they were also puzzled. Why would the three clans come at this time? And they even brought their juniors to enter the Ghost King Ridge. Were they trying to compare the strength of the younger generation? Everyone, you are all the elites of the younger generation in Huxley. The Jinshui clan, God's Eye, and Purple Mirage clan have brought their most elite juniors with them to provoke us. In this trial of the Ghost King Ridge, I hope that you can put aside your past grievances and cooperate with each other. You must let the juniors of the three clans see your strength. Lu Rinjue's expression was serious. He could not help but glance at Zhuowen, Lei Ling, and the others. Obviously, his words were for Lei Ling, Zhuowen, and the others to hear. After all, the two of them had a big conflict in God Extinction Hall. Lei Ling frowned slightly. He naturally heard about the arrival of the three clans, but he did not expect that the three clans would also bring their juniors to enter the Ghost King Ridge to compete with them. Chapter 4049. Suddenly, 3 streaks of light appeared in the sky. The 3 streaks of light were extremely fast and appeared above the Rift Valley in the blink of an eye. As the light faded, everyone noticed that the true appearance of the 3 streams of light was 3 glowing divine ships. Chief Lu, the opening of the Ghost King Ridge is really a grand occasion for Huxley. There are actually so many juniors participating in this trial. On the divine ship on the left, a man with an aquiline nose said ambiguously, "Chief Yu, the Ghost King Ridge is Huxley's territory. Huxley, can enter as many as I want. There's no need for you to worry about such a small matter." Lu Rinjue said indifferently, Then I'm looking forward to seeing if there's a genius among the younger generation of Huxley who can fight with my disciple." The aquiline nose man laughed and said to the youth beside him, "Disciple, you have to perform well this time. Don't ruin the reputation of our Jinshui clan. You understand?" The youth was very handsome, and his skin was fairer than snow. However, his cold eyes destroyed his overall beauty. "Master, don't worry. The only ones among the younger generation of Huxley that I can look straight at are Lei Ling and Bingyu. The others, When the youth mentioned the others, a disdainful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The youth's words were too arrogant. In the open space, many young cultivators of Huxley glared at him. They were very unhappy with the youth. Zhuowen stood beside Luke and silently sized up the 3 divine ships suspended in midair. After Luke's introduction, he also knew the origins of the people on the 3 divine ships. The aquiline nose man was called Yuri and was the chief of the Jinshui clan. The fair-skinned youth beside him was Yuri's disciple, Fu Ming. He was the most famous genius of the Jinshui clan and was definitely not weaker than Lei Ling. In fact, he was even stronger. On the other 2 divine ships were the people of God's Eye and Purple Mirage. The patriarch of God's Eye was an old man named Lung Yenyu. He had an extra eye between his eyebrows. It was said that this was the innate ability of God's Eye. It was called the Divine Eye and possessed great power. The descendant brought by God's Eye was their clan's strongest genius, Lung Feifei. Lung Feifei also had a vertical eye in between her eyebrows. She was extremely beautiful, but her temperament was extremely cold. She had an unapproachable look. The leader of the Purple Mirage, Xiao Zihue, was a beautiful woman in a purple robe. She had a graceful figure, and her every movement exuded a breathtaking charm. Although she didn't say anything, she made many hot-blooded young cultivators fall head over heels for her. They couldn't take their eyes off her. The descendant of the Purple Mirage was also a young woman named Jian Wuqing. She wore a loose warrior's robe and had 2 purple longswords tied to her waist. She also carried 2 longswords on her back. She wasn't particularly beautiful, but she had a heroic air about her. She was like a peerless sword that had just been unsheathed. Zhuowen's eyes were like torches. He could tell at a glance that the 3 descendants brought by the 3 clans were extraordinary. They weren't weaker than Lei Ling. In fact, they were even stronger. Lu Renjue naturally noticed the 3 talented juniors. He couldn't help but frown. If the 3 of them entered the Ghost King Ridge together and joined forces, Lei Ling and the rest would definitely be no match for them. Looking at their condition, it was obvious that they would join forces. Lu Renjue subconsciously glanced at Zhuowen, who was beside Luke. If it was before, he might have been worried. But now he was much calmer. Zhuowen was Huxley's real trump card. With Zhuowen around, Huxley would definitely not be at a disadvantage in this trial. He might even have the upper hand. Luke naturally noticed Lu Renjue's gaze. He smiled bitterly in his heart. Only he knew that after the Ghost King Ridge opened, Zhuowen wouldn't help Lei Ling and the rest. He wouldn't find trouble with Fu Ming and the rest. He only had one goal, and that was to save Shan Lingyun. Patriarch Lu, there's no need to beat around the bush. The Ghost King Ridge is about to open. You should also talk about the rules of the Ghost King Ridge trials. Lung Yinyu stroked his long white beard and said with a faint smile. Lu Renjue nodded and said, "The Ghost King Ridge has a time limit of 1 month. In this 1 month, you will be trapped in the Ghost King Ridge. After a month, you will be transported out. What you need to do is to survive and work hard to improve yourselves. The Ghost King Ridge is very beneficial to you. Don't waste this opportunity. Of course, the most important point is that you can't kill each other. If I find out that someone deliberately kills others in the Ghost King Ridge, after the Ghost King Ridge closes, I will personally find that person and make him pay with his life." When Lu Renjue said this, his tone became murderous. He even looked coldly at Yuri and the rest. Obviously, his words were meant for Yuri and the rest. Yuri and the rest narrowed their eyes but didn't say anything. They still had a smile on their faces, and it was hard to tell what they were thinking. "Chief Lu, the rules have been explained. It's about time to open the Ghost King Ridge." Yuri smiled. Lu Renjue didn't answer, but nodded. Then he led the 3 great guardians to the entrance of the Ghost King Ridge. At the entrance of the Ghost King Ridge, black fog swirled and surged. Horrifying screams came from the black fog. It was mournful and terrifying. Lu Renjue and the 3 great guardians each took out an exquisite array flag. Then, the 4 of them combined their hands and formed a seal. When the 4 of them took out the array flag, the entrance of the Ghost King Ridge rippled violently. Then, an oval-shaped gap as tall as a person appeared. "The Ghost King Ridge has opened. Everyone, please come in." Lu Renjue took back the array flag and blocked the black fog with his great power. He looked at the people in the open space and let out a magnificent and loud voice. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Just as Lu Renjue's voice fell, the young cultivators in the open space who couldn't wait turned into streaks of light and went into the gap. Junior sister Sa Mei, after entering the Ghost King Ridge, "Follow me closely, okay?" Zhuowen told Sa Mei. Sa Mei nodded seriously. She had already received Luke's instructions. She must be inseparable from Zhuowen in the Ghost King Ridge. With Zhuowen's strength, it was enough to protect her through this month. Let's go. Zhuowen stepped forward with his right foot and pulled Sa Mei into a streak of light. They disappeared in the blink of an eye. Disciple, you can only succeed in this mission. Failure is not an option. Don't let me down. Yuri secretly transmitted his voice. Chapter 40-50. Lu Renjue frowned slightly. He could vaguely sense that Yuri, Lung Yenyu, and Xiao Zihui had secretly sent telepathic messages to their disciples when their disciples had set off. Although the telepathic messages were brief, he could still sense the ripples of the messages. Yuri, Lung Yenyu, and Xiao Zihui, you'd better not play any tricks. Otherwise, Huxley, will definitely make you pay. Lu Renjue thought to himself. Although he was a little uneasy, he was quite confident in his arrangements. Even if Yuri and the others played any tricks, he would still be able to resolve them one by one, and even fiercely counterattack. Roar, roar, roar. Shrill howls resounded throughout the entire Ghost King Ridge. As soon as Zhuowen and Sa Mei entered Ghost King Ridge, they discovered that the surrounding black fog was rolling. Moreover, evil spirits suddenly rushed out of the black fog and pounced toward Zhuowen with bared fangs and brandished claws. Just as Zhuowen was about to attack, Sa Mei, who was beside him, attacked first and eliminated all the evil spirits that pounced toward them. Zhuowen looked at Sa Mei in surprise. If he was not wrong, Sa Mei's technique should be a type of exorcism technique. Sa Mei, are you from the exorcist family? Zhuowen could not help but ask. According to what he knew, only the exorcist family had the ability to exorcise evil spirits. Sa Mei shook his head and said, Senior brother, don't you know that Huxley has a large number of exorcism manuals? Huxley's disciples will also practice exorcism techniques in the process of cultivation. After all, evil spirits are everywhere in the 100 outer realms. If you do not have the means to deal with evil spirits, you will be at a disadvantage. I see. Zhuowen understood. After all, he had just entered Huxley not long ago, so he did not know much about these things. At the same time, Zhuowen also learned from Sa Mei that many hidden exorcist families in the Huxley realm were inextricably linked to the Huxley divine city behind them. Many of the younger generation of exorcist families would often come to Hushu City to further their studies. It was because of this relationship that the divine city of Hushu had many exorcism manuals from the aristocratic families of exorcists. Of course, most of them were copies. The original copies were naturally in their respective exorcist families. The evil spirits in the periphery of Ghost King Ridge were all extremely low-level evil spirits. Zhuowen basically did not need to make a move. Sa Mei could easily deal with them. The chaotic energy in the Ghost King Ridge is indeed of a higher grade. Zhuowen could not help but sigh as he felt the energy aura spreading around the Ghost King Ridge. Even the absolute divine hall couldn't compare to the Ghost King Ridge. Just as Lu Renjue had said, this was a holy land for cultivation. Of course, the Ghost King Ridge was too terrifying. Most of the cultivators who entered would face life-threatening danger. It was obviously difficult to cultivate here for a long time. However, for Zhuowen, this was not difficult at all. To him, the evil spirits were food for his cultivation. In this place, it was not him who was afraid of the evil spirits, but the evil spirits who were afraid of him. If not for the fact that he did not want to be too ostentatious, he only needed to release his aura, and the evil spirits around him would be scared out of their wits. Senior brother, since we have to stay here for a month, we just need to find a secluded place and concentrate on cultivation for this month. Sa Mei suggested. Zhuowen shook his head and said seriously, Sa Mei, I need to go into the depths of Ghost King Ridge. It will be very dangerous. I hope you can wait for me in the periphery. When I come back, I will find you. Sa Mei looked at Zhuowen's serious face. She was silent for a moment and said with a smile, In that case, I will wait for you in the periphery. Zhuowen's eyes revealed an apologetic look. He hesitated for a moment, took out a disc array, and handed it to Sa-mei, and said, "Junior sister, if you encounter any danger, immediately use this disc array. It can help you avoid a life and death crisis." Sa-mei forced a smile and took the disc array, but she did not care much. "Thank you, senior brother." Sa-mei lowered her head and said, "Take care." Zhuowen patted Sa-mei's head, then used his movement technique and rushed into the depths of Ghost King Ridge. Sa-mei stared blankly at Zhuowen's back as he left. She stood on the spot for a long time before putting away the disc array and heading in another direction. After Zhuowen parted with Sa-mei, his speed became faster and faster. He was like a bolt of black lightning that flashed and disappeared. His aura also became stronger and stronger, surrounding him like a hurricane. The surrounding evil spirits wanted to charge forward and tear Zhuowen to shreds. However, after sensing this aura, they were like mice that had seen a cat and fled in fear. Some of the evil spirits that fled too slowly were swept up by this aura and crushed into pieces, turning into a trace of energy in Zhuowen's body. "Master, I hope nothing happens to you." Zhuowen's gaze was extremely cold. At the periphery of Ghost King Ridge, Fu Ming, Lung Feifei, and Jian Wuqing were walking slowly. Jian Wuqing's eyes were sharp as a terrifying sword. Qi burst out from his body and spread out in all directions. Many evil spirits were immediately torn apart after entering this sword Qi domain. "Feifei, Wuqing, do you want to kill people, or do you want to unseal the Ghost King?" Fu Ming stopped and looked at the two women beside him with a smile. "Kill people." Jian Wuqing replied straightforwardly, "I also think that killing people is more interesting." Lung Feifei said coldly. The smile on Fu Ming's lips grew wider, and his eyes narrowed into arcs. He laughed and said, "We really have the same idea. I want to kill people too. I want to kill everyone in Ghost King Ridge. I want to pile their heads into a mountain, their bones into a throne, and their flesh and blood into a carpet. Just thinking about it makes me feel that this is a supreme art. Just thinking about it makes me tremble with excitement." Fu Ming threw his head back and laughed, his voice becoming cold and sinister. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei looked coldly at Fu Ming's perverted performance, a trace of disgust in their eyes. The reason why they chose to kill people was because they did not want to go deep into Ghost King Ridge. As for Fu Ming, it was entirely because it was his hobby. "If we all choose to kill people, who will complete the mission?" Lung Feifei frowned. Fu Ming also calmed down and said in a low voice, "Why don't we do this? Anyway, we have a month. Let's search for the Ghost King's sealed place first. If we meet anyone, we'll kill them all. After we find the Ghost King's sealed place, we'll unseal it first. It won't be too late to unseal it after we kill everyone." Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei frowned. This Fu Ming was really a bloodthirsty fellow. He was actually so passionate about killing people. "Fu Ming, this mission is important. It's easy for accidents to happen like this. Lei Ling and Bing, you are not simple. If we are held back by them, we won't be able to complete the mission." Jian Wuqing snorted coldly. Chapter 4051. The Ghost King Ridge was shrouded in black fog. Evil spirits were rampant, and ghosts were like shadows. Any cultivator who entered the Ghost King Ridge was basically using all kinds of methods to resist the evil spirits in the black fog. And the evil spirits were even more fearless. Like locusts, they launched the fiercest attacks on the cultivators who entered the Ghost King Ridge. But there was a figure quietly moving forward in the Ghost King Ridge. But the strange thing was that wherever this person passed, the black fog dispersed and the ghosts fled, not daring to approach. And he was Zhuowen. Zhuowen continued to go deeper into the Ghost King Ridge. His speed was not fast, but his divine sense searched very carefully, not letting go of any clues. Of course, many evil spirits came to his door, and Zhuowen accepted them without hesitation. On the way, Zhuowen met a lot of Huxley's clansmen. What made Zhuowen helpless was that these young cultivators of Huxley were extremely afraid of him. As soon as they met him, they immediately scattered like birds and beasts. Of course, there were also some clansmen who tried to approach him and form an alliance with him, but were coldly rejected by Zhuowen. The closer he got to the depths of the Ghost King Ridge, the fewer people there were. Zhuowen continued to move forward for about 10 days, and he had not met anyone on the way. Ow, ow, ow. Suddenly, there was the sound of ghosts crying and wolves howling in front of him, and then Zhuowen saw a cloud of black fog quickly surging in front of him. Almost countless evil spirits were condensed in the black fog. Zhuowen was surprised that these evil spirits were not afraid of him at all and flew straight toward him. With his current aura, he could be said to be the nemesis of evil spirits. Once the evil spirits came within a certain range of him, they would immediately be refined into the purest power by his mighty Hong Meng divine power. Thus, all along the way, all the evil spirits, Zhuo, when encountered, were practically like mice that had encountered a cat, and they fled in panic without knowing where to go. And now, the situation was greatly unexpected. The evil spirits that should have been afraid of him were rushing toward him in groups, which was indeed quite strange. Ow, ow, ow. The black fog rolled over, and in the blink of an eye, it was only a few hundred feet away from Zhuowen. Humph! Zhuowen harumphed coldly as grand mist god force gushed out from his body. The group of evil spirits at the forefront of the black mist didn't even have time to scream before they were annihilated by the vast grand mist god force and refined into the purest form of energy. It was only then that the group of evil spirits in the black fog discovered Zhuowen's existence. They let out terrified shrieks and retreated a distance away. However, although these evil spirits were afraid of Zhuowen's terrifying aura, they did not disperse because of it. Instead, they hesitated to move forward. Zhuowen was really puzzled. These evil spirits were clearly afraid of his majestic Grand Mist God Force, but why were they so afraid of him? Logically speaking, after these evil spirits had suffered such a huge loss, they should have fled. But now, the situation was very strange. Not only did these evil spirits not escape, they were hesitating instead, as if something was chasing them from behind, causing them to not dare to retreat at all. Could it be Zhuowen's expression changed greatly, as if he had suddenly thought of something? At this moment, an earth-shattering howl suddenly sounded from the depths of the Ghost King Ridge. This howl was similar to the sound of metal scraping against metal, causing one's hair to stand on end. Ao, ao. The evil spirits in the black mist immediately let out anxious and sorrowful cries. Then, under Zhuowen's astonished gaze, these evil spirits rushed towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen's brows furrowed slightly, but he did not stop these evil spirits. Instead, he lowered his head and fell into deep thought. The evil spirits were extremely fast. With the cover of the black mist, they passed by Zhuowen in the blink of an eye and disappeared into the darkness behind Zhuowen. The terrifying howl was getting closer and closer, as if it was approaching at an incredible speed. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. He had a hunch that the owner of this howl was definitely in existence, far stronger than the evil spirits. Could it be a ghost? Zhuowen suddenly remembered what Luke had said when he had introduced the Ghost King Ridge. He had said that there were countless evil spirits in the Ghost King Ridge, and that it was a paradise for evil spirits. But in addition to evil spirits, there was also something called eerie spirits. Evil spirits were formless and intangible, while ghosts had a substantial body, but they were even more eerie and terrifying than evil spirits. Hee hee hee. Suddenly, a creepy and strange laughter came from behind Zhuowen. The sound was very close, as if it was right next to his ear. At the same time, a pair of pale hands suddenly landed on Zhuowen's shoulders. This pair of pale hands was very thin and weak, almost like skin and bones. The surface of the strange white skin was covered with a dense number of maggots. A strong stench assailed his nostrils, and Zhuowen felt the weight on his shoulders increase greatly. His knees could not help but bend. If one looked carefully, there was a huge pit under Zhuowen's feet, which was caused by the huge weight on his body. Hee hee hee. The strange laughter was very close, and the pair of pale hands immediately grabbed Zhuowen's throat. Human cultivator, you've got guts, daring to invade the territory of our ghost clan. I haven't tasted you humans for a long time. This sweet and delicious taste really makes me drool. The creepy voice sounded in Zhuowen's ears, and it was full of greed. Zhuowen was very calm, and he said lightly, "So you're a ghost? Your strength is indeed much stronger than most evil spirits. Unfortunately, you've picked the wrong target. Hee hee hee. Human, you're still so stubborn even when death is at hand. Fine, you'll become my meal." The ghost's cold voice sounded. Just as the ghost was about to attack, a terrifying aura suddenly burst out from Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen's black hair fluttered despite the lack of wind. Dense purple-gold energy surged out like a vast ocean. The ghost was caught off guard, and he was sent flying by the force of the aura, landing heavily on the ground not far away. At this moment, Zhuowen suddenly turned around, and he used his index and middle fingers to form a sword and pointed at the ghost not far away. A purple-gold energy burst out and landed on the ghost's body. As if it had suffered a heavy blow, the ghost let out a shrill cry. Its originally solid body became dim and lifeless. Why is the exorcism power in your body so strong? The ghost lay on the ground, trembling, and his eyes were full of fear as he stared at Zhuowen. Zhuowen looked at the ghost in front of him in surprise. He knew very well how strong the vast grand mist power in his body was. Even if it was an evil spirit, if it was hit by his energy just now, its soul would be scattered. But the ghost in front of him was only heavily injured. At the same time, he saw the ghost's true face. Chapter 4052. It seems that Gui Mei is indeed much stronger than the evil spirits. This Gui Mei's strength is probably not inferior to the formation-level evil spirits. Zhuowen pondered. Among the 9 levels of evil spirits, the formation level was the 6th level. He had never encountered an evil spirit of this level. Run! Gui Mei saw that Zhuowen was distracted, and his eyes flashed. Without thinking, he turned into a stream of light and fled into the depths of the Ghost King Ridge. Humph! Want to escape? Not so easy. Zhuowen snorted and waved his sleeve. A vast amount of grand mist divine power turned into a purple-gold light. This purple-gold light was extremely fast and caught up with Gui Mei in an instant and tied him up. Gui Mei's face changed greatly. This light formed by the vast amount of grand mist divine power was his nemesis. After he was tied up, a sense of powerlessness surged in his body, and he fell to the ground, unable to move. Human, how dare you? I am the descendant of the Ghost King. If you kill me, the Ghost King will not let you go. Gui Mei, with disheveled hair, shouted in a restrained voice, "If you say one more word, I will kill you now." Zhuowen came to Gui Mei's side and looked down at him condescendingly. His voice was filled with killing intent. Zhuowen naturally knew that there was a Ghost King in the Ghost King Ridge. Unfortunately, that Ghost King was sealed. This Gui Mei actually used the Ghost King to threaten him. It was simply ridiculous. Sure enough, Gui Mei was stunned by Zhuowen's words. He lay on the ground and trembled. What do you want? Gui Mei was weak. He had lived in the Ghost King Ridge for so long and naturally met many cultivators who entered the Ghost King Ridge to train. Among these cultivators he met, some of them were not much weaker than Zhuowen, but none of them had the ability to exorcise evil spirits as terrifying as Zhuowen. It could be said that Zhuowen's vast amount of grand mist divine power was the nemesis of all evil spirits and ghosts. As long as you answer one of my questions seriously, I won't kill you, Zhuowen said coldly. Gui Mei's eyes revealed a glimmer of hope. He hurriedly said, Master, I will definitely tell you everything I know. I will not hold back. Zhuowen nodded and continued, I heard that there is a person imprisoned in the Ghost King Ridge. Is this true? Ghost's eyes flickered, revealing a look of hesitation. Speak, otherwise die. Zhuowen shouted coldly. Gui Mei's whole body trembled. He was so scared that he hurriedly said, It is true, but this person was personally imprisoned in the depths of Ghost King Ridge by Huxley's patriarch Lu Renjue. This person is of great importance. Moreover, Lu Renjue had an agreement with Lord Ghost King. Thus, a portion of Lord Ghost King's power is guarding that person. Gui Mei looked at Zhuowen uneasily. He did not know why Zhuowen was asking about this person's whereabouts. However, he had some guesses in his heart, which made him feel even more uneasy. I heard that the Ghost King was personally sealed by Huxley's patriarch. Furthermore, every patriarch of Huxley's patriarch would seal him. Logically speaking, the Ghost King and Huxley's patriarch have an irreconcilable feud. Why is the Ghost King helping Lu Renjue? Zhuowen's gaze became very sharp. Gui Mei smiled bitterly and said, Although Lord Ghost King was personally sealed by Huxley's patriarch, he is still living under someone else's roof. Sometimes he has no choice but to lower his head. Zhuowen nodded his head. He was extremely agitated. He knew that the person Gui Mei was talking about should be Shan Lingyun. However, Zhuowen's expression did not change. Instead, he said in a low voice, Then bring me to the place where that person is imprisoned now. Gui Mei was so frightened that he hurriedly knelt on the ground and said, Master, please spare my life. The place where the person is imprisoned is a forbidden area for us, Gui Mei. If we trespass without permission, Lord Ghost King will not let us off easily. Zhuowen's expression instantly turned cold. With a murderous look, he said, Then do you want to die now? Or do you want to live for a while longer? Gui Mei trembled and knelt on the ground, not saying a word. I can promise you that if you bring me to the place where the person is imprisoned, I can save your life. Zhuowen's tone became gentler. Gui Mei still did not say a word. Zhuowen completely lost his patience and said, Since you are not willing to bring me there, there is no value in you living. As he said that, Zhuowen stretched out his right hand. Blazing purple gold energy gathered in Zhuowen's palm. Gui Mei, who was originally motionless, suddenly raised his head and said in a trembling voice, Master, please wait. I am willing to bring you to the place where the person is imprisoned. Zhuowen's body moved without any wind. He looked down coldly at Gui Mei, who was trembling in fear. He did not say a word, but the murderous look in his eyes seemed to have materialized. Seeing that Zhuowen did not have any intention of stopping, Gui Mei was completely frightened. He kept kowtowing and begging for mercy. Zhuowen clenched his right hand, and the purple gold energy gathered in his palm dissipated with a loud bang. Lead the way. If you dare to play any tricks, I will immediately kill you. Zhuowen said calmly. Yes, yes, yes. Gui Mei was delighted and quickly agreed. Next, Gui Mei led the way in front, while Zhuowen silently followed behind. On the way, after some conversation, Zhuowen also learned that this Gui Mei was called Bai Shui Gui. Bai Shui Gui's strength in Ghost King Ridge could only be considered average. It could be said that he was relatively unremarkable among the many Gui Mei. He. Bai Shui Gui, your luck is not bad. Ghost King Ridge has just opened, and you have already caught a human cultivator. Not long after Bai Shui Gui led the way, a gloomy voice suddenly came from the front. In front of them, a thick black fog swept over. This black fog was filled with many evil spirits. These evil spirits continued to stack together, forming a huge throne. These evil spirits were all frightened and did not dare to move. A huge black figure was sitting on the seat that was formed by the evil spirits. This black figure was at least 3 feet tall, and his entire body was covered with thick black hair. Looking carefully, this figure's appearance was very similar to a huge black bear. Black Bear Ghost, why are you here? Bai Shui Gui's face was a little ugly. Black Bear Ghost casually picked up an evil spirit beside him and stuffed it into his mouth. His mouth chewed, and the chewing sound was exceptionally horrifying. Black Bear Ghost's scarlet eyes looked past Bai Shui Gui and landed on Zhuowen. His eyes were filled with greed. He licked his lips and said, Bai Shui Gui, I have my eyes on this human cultivator. You can scram. White Water Ghost was enraged and said, Black Bear Ghost, how dare you? Is this Lord someone you can offend? Oh, you called him Lord. Ha. Bai Shui Gui, although I know you are very cowardly, I did not expect you to be so cowardly. You actually submitted to a human cultivator. You are a disgrace to us Ghost King descendants. Black Bear Ghost laughed, looking at Bai Shui Gui with eyes full of contempt and disdain. Bai Shui Gui sneered in his heart. This Black Bear Ghost was indeed all brawn and no brains. Now that he looked down on Zhuowen, he would have to suffer in a while. Although Black Bear Ghost was much stronger than him, he did not think that Black Bear Ghost would be a match for Zhuowen. Once Zhuowen went crazy, Black Bear Ghost would be dead, without a doubt. Black Bear Ghost naturally noticed Bai Shui Gui's sneering expression and was very unhappy. Chapter 4053. Boom. With a thunderous sound, Black Bear Ghost's big hand landed in front of White Water Ghost in the blink of an eye. White Water Ghost's expression was ugly, but he didn't back down. With a shrill howl, a pale white mist burst out of his body. With the help of the strange white mist, White Water Ghost's aura skyrocketed. Then, White Water Ghost's right claw struck out. Bang! The two collided. Yin Qi rolled, and the surrounding temperature dropped. Black frost formed on the ground. Puchi, White Water Ghost's expression changed. With a muffled groan, he couldn't help but retreat. White Water Ghost, with your strength, you want to fight with me. You overestimate yourself. Black Bear Ghost sat on the seat made of evil spirits and looked at White Water Ghost with disdain. White Water Ghost was furious. He wanted to charge at Black Bear Ghost again, but a hand landed on his shoulder. White Water Ghost looked over and saw that the owner of the hand was Zhuowen. He quickly said in shame, Sir, I'm not skilled enough. It's fine. Zhuowen waved his hand. Then he looked at Black Bear Ghost coldly and said, You're called Black Bear Ghost, right? If you kneel down and kowtow to me now, I might let you die a quick death. Black Bear Ghost was stunned. He looked at Zhuowen as if he was looking at an idiot. Then he laughed out loud. His laughter was very wild. Kowtow and apologize. Let me die a quick death. Are you sure there's nothing wrong with your head? Black Bear Ghost sneered. There's a limit to my patience. Get over here and kowtow to me, Zhuowen said impatiently. Black Bear Ghost's eyes turned extremely cold. There was even a strong killing intent. Reckless human. Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. With that, Black Bear Ghost's right hand formed a palm. He reached out and pressed down on Zhuowen's head. Boom. Boom, boom. Black mist lingered above Zhuo Wen's head. It condensed into a huge black palm and slammed down. White Water Ghost's expression changed. Black Bear Ghost's attack was much stronger than before. However, he quickly recalled Zhuo Wen's terrifying exorcism powers, and his expression returned to normal. Zhuo Wen fiercely stomped his right foot, and his entire body shot out like a bolt of lightning. Rumble! His speed was too fast. When the black palm came crashing down, he was already in front of the Black Bear Ghost. Then, like a python coming out of its hole, his hand quickly grabbed the Black Bear Ghost's neck. Only then did the Black Bear Ghost react. His hands kept waving, and rolling black fog surged out of his body, turning into the sharpest hidden weapon in the world, shooting towards Zhuo Wen. Unfortunately, when these hidden weapons were an inch away from Zhuo Wen, they were blocked by a shield of purple-gold energy. You dare to show off in front of me with this little bit of strength? Zhuo Wen grabbed Black Bear Ghost's neck and lifted him up as he sneered. Black Bear Ghost's eyes were filled with fear. He had never expected this human cultivator to be so powerful, especially the exorcism powers on this person's body, which completely restrained him, making him unable to use any of his strength. Black Bear Ghost, I said you can't afford to offend this lord. White Water Ghost stood to the side and gloated. My lord, I was wrong. Please spare my life, Black Bear Ghost said in a trembling voice. You have no value to me at all. You'd better become my nourishment. As Zhuo Wen spoke, the purple gold energy in his hand suddenly surged out, drilling into Black Bear Ghost's body. Ah! Black Bear Ghost let out a shrill cry. His body became dimmer and dimmer, and finally disappeared, turning into a stream of energy that entered Zhuo Wen's body. Ghosts are indeed much better than evil spirits. They actually contain such pure energy. Zhuo Wen nodded his head in satisfaction. Compared to evil spirits, the amount of energy that ghost spirits could bring him was much greater. He had a premonition that if he could refine enough ghosts in this Ghost King Ridge, he might be able to break through again. White Water Ghost, who had seen this scene clearly, was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. In his eyes, Zhuo Wen had directly eaten Black Bear Ghost. This was really too terrifying. If I hadn't agreed to take him to the place of imprisonment, I might have ended up like Black Bear Ghost. White Water Ghost thought to himself. His respect for Zhuo Wen grew. White Water Ghost, there should be a lot of ghosts in Ghost King Ridge, right? Zhuo Wen looked at White Water Ghost with bright eyes. White Water Ghost's face turned pale. He had already realized the purpose of Zhuo Wen's question. He braced himself and nodded. On the way to the place of imprisonment, take me to the territories of the ghosts along the way, Zhuo Wen said casually. White Water Ghost smiled bitterly. In the end, he could only nod in agreement. The place of imprisonment was located in the deepest part of Ghost King Ridge. It was said that it was not far from the place where the Ghost King was sealed. White Water Ghost was very dutiful. On the way, he brought Zhuo Wen to the territories of the other ghosts. Wherever the two of them went, the ghosts would basically suffer. In the end, they all became Zhuo Wen's nourishment. After devouring dozens of powerful ghosts, Zhuo Wen's cultivation finally had a breakthrough. He successfully reached the peak of the demonic transformation. Zhuo Wen's eyes were full of excitement. Now, even if he had only broken through a small realm, the increase in his strength was extremely obvious. It could be said that it was an exponential increase. My lord, after passing this high slope, we will reach the place of imprisonment. The two of them came to the back of a high slope. White Water Ghost stopped and said to Zhuo Wen, "Tell me the specific strength of this Ghost King." Zhuo Wen said in a low voice. White Water Ghost's eyes were filled with fear. He trembled as he said, Before Lord Ghost King was sealed, he was already a supreme expert who was at large. Although the place of imprisonment is only guarded by a part of Lord Ghost King's power, that power is at least the strength of the ancient star transformation. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He did not expect the Ghost King to be so strong. Before he was sealed, he was already in the great carefree realm. Huxley domain is only a middle-lower domain among the 100 domains. There are pitifully few great carefree realm experts. How could this Huxley have the ability to seal the Ghost King? Zhuowen was puzzled. He was clear about the terror of a great carefree realm expert. Given Huxley's foundation, it should not have reached the level where he could seal such a powerful existence. My lord, you may not know, Huxley was one of the most powerful clans millions of years ago. At that time, Huxley was enough to rank in the top 15 of the 100 domains. He had more than 10 great carefree realm experts. And Lord Ghost King was sealed in the Ghost King Ridge during Huxley's most powerful period. Whitewater Ghost slowly recounted the secret of the past. Zhuowen showed a look of understanding. Chapter 4054. Continue leading the way. Zhuowen said calmly, Sir, once we reach the prison, I will definitely be treated as a traitor by the Ghost King, and there will be no place for me in the Ghost King Ridge. Sir, can you take me away from the Ghost King Ridge? Whitewater Ghost looked at Zhuowen with hope in his eyes. Are you trying to bargain with me? Zhuowen looked coldly at Whitewater Ghost. Whitewater Ghost hurriedly knelt and begged for mercy, hoping that Zhuowen would forgive him. Do your job well. If I'm satisfied, I'll consider it, Zhuowen said. Whitewater Ghost was overjoyed and hurriedly thanked him. Then, the two of them crossed the slope. Behind the high slope, there was a vast expanse of wilderness. Rolling black fog gathered in the wilderness, and unsettling howls could be heard from within the black fog. At the end of the wilderness, Zhuowen could faintly see a tall black tower. There are so many ghosts. Looking at the rolling black fog in the wilderness, Zhuowen's eyes shone with greed. As for Whitewater Ghost, he silently mourned for the group of ghosts in the wilderness. He knew very well that these ghosts would soon become nourishment for Zhuowen's cultivation. Let's go. Zhuowen slowly walked down the slope, and the purple-gold energy around him burst forth without concealing it. A human cultivator? How dare he come to the prison? Isn't he courting death? Isn't this perfect? We haven't tasted human flesh in a long time. Now is the perfect time. Don't even think about taking him from me. This human cultivator is mine. The moment Zhuowen walked down the slope, the ghosts below all became restless. Then, the black fog rolled like a long dragon and rushed toward Zhuowen. Every ghost had an evil glint in their eyes, as if they were about to devour a person. They instantly enveloped Zhuowen's frail figure. Whitewater Ghost stood on the slope and looked worriedly at Zhuowen, who was being engulfed by the black fog. There were too many ghosts in the prison. There were close to 100 of them. Although Zhuowen was powerful, he was worried that Zhuowen would not be able to deal with so many ghosts at once. Soon, the Whitewater Ghost was shocked to find that the black fog in front of it had been dispersed by a mysterious force. Then, the 100 or so ghosts seemed to have stopped in midair. Upon closer inspection, the Whitewater Ghost discovered that Zhuowen's surroundings were filled with ripples that resembled water. Zhuowen, who was in the middle of the group of ghosts, formed a seal with his hands. Strange ripples appeared out of nowhere from his hands and condensed in midair. Could it be a Ray Dao? Milord is also a divine array master. Whitewater Ghost's eyes were filled with shock as he muttered to himself. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled into an almost imperceptible smile. Before the group of ghosts engulfed him, he had already prepared a great array. The array he used was a type of trapping formation. It was a peak heaven-breaching Tier 9 formation. It was more than enough to trap these ghosts. Zhuowen strolled through the group of ghosts. With every step he took, rays of purplish gold energy would surge out of his body. The rays of purplish gold energy were as dense as raindrops as they merged into the bodies of the ghosts. Then, the ghosts were refined into streams of pure energy, which was fed back to Zhuowen. Whitewater Ghost gasped. Zhuowen's techniques were far too strange and varied. They were impossible to guard against. After Zhuowen dealt with all the ghosts in the field that had been shrouded in black fog seemed to have cleared up a lot. At the end of the field, the towering tower became much clearer than before. Zhuowen could even see the thick and pitch-black chains that surrounded the tower. The walls of the tower were covered in black patterns. "Milord, this is the prison. The person Lu Rinjua wants to imprison is in this tower." Soon, the two of them arrived in front of the tower. Whitewater Ghost said in a low voice, "Human, you're quite bold. You actually dared to barge into my forbidden grounds and kill so many of my descendants." A furious and dignified voice rang out from the tower. The black chains wrapped around the surface of the tower lit up with a strange black light. Accompanying the black light was an extremely powerful pressure and aura. Thump. Whitewater Ghost's face paled. He suddenly knelt on the ground. Lord Ghost King, clang, clang, clang." The black chains on the tower suddenly melted. A pitch-black and viscous liquid dripped from the tower. The black liquid continued to condense. Finally, it formed a tall and mighty figure. This figure was covered in black armor. Black spikes protruded from the surface of the armor. This figure was more than 10 meters tall. The face behind the helmet was pitch black. It was impossible to see his features clearly. The only thing that stood out was the pair of eyes that flashed with red light. He was the Ghost King's incarnation. At the same time, when the Ghost King's incarnation appeared, 3 figures appeared on the other side of the hill. These 3 figures were 2 women and a man. They were Fu Ming, Lung Feifei, and Jian Wuqing, who were searching for the Ghost King's seal. What a powerful ghost aura. Look, could that be the Ghost King? Fu Ming's expression changed slightly. He hurriedly climbed up the hill and looked at the end of the field. He saw the tall Ghost King's incarnation standing in front of the tower. "We've encountered so many ghosts along the way, but none of them have a ghost aura that can compare to this. Perhaps the 2 of them are not even on the same level," Lung Feifei said calmly. "That means that the guy below the tower should be the Ghost King? But isn't the Ghost King sealed?" Jian Wuqing asked doubtfully. "That should be the Ghost King's incarnation. The real Ghost King should still be sealed," Fu Ming said in a low voice. "It's just an incarnation, but it has such a powerful aura and pressure. Just how powerful is this Ghost King?" Lung Feifei said in surprise. "Hee. Master once said that the Ghost King is the strongest in the great carefree realm. Its strength is comparable to the realm guardians where you are," Fu Ming said, licking his lips. "Since the Ghost King's incarnation is here, then the seal should not be far from here," Jian Wuqing said. "Yes, let's look around nearby." "Of course. The best way is to cooperate with the Ghost King's incarnation." "This is the fastest way," Fu Ming said. "No, my master reminded me that the Ghost King is very cunning. Unless it's absolutely necessary, it's best not to come into contact with the Ghost King," Lung Feifei said. Jian Wuqing also nodded. Her master had also reminded her before. Fu Ming frowned, but did not object. Look, there seems to be a human cultivator there." Suddenly, Jian Wuqing exclaimed in a low voice, pointing at Zhuowen not far away. Chapter 4055. "Who's this guy?" Fu Ming looked at Zhuowen's figure and frowned slightly. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei looked puzzled. They did not know Zhuowen at all. At this moment, Zhuowen and the Ghost King's incarnation were still confronting each other at the foot of the tower. "Puny human, why aren't you coming over to die?" The Ghost King's scarlet eyes looked down at Zhuowen coldly. The Ghost King was naturally furious that Zhuowen had killed the group of ghosts in the prison. However, he naturally had his own dignity. In his opinion, Zhuowen was too puny and was not worthy of him taking action. The white water ghost was so scared that he trembled at the side, not daring to say a word. Zhuowen looked coldly at the Ghost King's incarnation and said indifferently, "I didn't come to the prison to be your enemy. I only have one goal, and that is the people imprisoned in the tower. As long as you hand over the people in the tower to me, I won't attack you." The Ghost King was stunned. He looked at Zhuowen as if he was looking at an idiot. "Puny human, are you joking? Won't attack me? In my eyes, you're just a puny ant. It's as easy as flipping my hand for me to crush you to death. You actually said that you won't attack me. What a joke." The Ghost King laughed loudly, but the coldness in his eyes became more intense. He was the Ghost King and had roamed the 100 domains outside the realm for countless years. Countless cultivators had paled at the mention of his name. Even most of the cultivators who entered the Ghost King Ridge did not dare to approach this forbidden area. Now, a mere human cultivator dared to be so arrogant and impudent in front of him. He did not put him in his eyes at all. "Ghost King, you're indeed very powerful. If your original body appeared, I might not be your match. However, it's just an incarnation. You're not my match. Don't waste time. Release the people imprisoned in the tower. Otherwise, you might not be able to keep this incarnation of yours." Zhuowen was rather impatient as he waved his hand. "Despicable ant, you've completely angered me. This king was benevolent and wanted to give you a chance to commit suicide. Now it seems that you don't understand Benwang's benevolence at all. Since that's the case, Benwang will personally take action and let you taste true fear." Taste. The Ghost King's spine suddenly straightened. His several zhang tall body was much taller than Zhuowen. The pitch-black armor covered in spikes was burning with pitch-black flames. The strange thing was that the temperature of the flames was extremely low. It was like frost, making people feel a chill down their backs. The Ghost King grasped at the air with his right hand, and scorching black flames erupted, materializing into a gigantic black saber that was as tall as a man. The Ghost King is angry. "My lord, run. Lord Ghost King is an invincible existence. You are no match for him." The white water ghost was so frightened that his words were stammering. After he finished speaking, he took to his heels and ran away from the tower. His speed was simply breathtaking. Zhuowen had no time to pay attention to the white water ghost. He looked at the Ghost King in front of him with a serious gaze. The Ghost King's strength was truly terrifying. It was far stronger than any other ghost he had ever encountered. And this was only the Ghost King's incarnation. If it were the Ghost King's true body, Zhuowen would not have needed to fight. He could have just fled. "Human, your courage is commendable. You can actually remain so calm in the face of this king's aura. In order to reward you, I will be merciful and let you die under my saber." The Ghost King grinned and suddenly took a step forward with his right foot. Like a bolt of black lightning, he charged at Zhuowen. Thump, thump, thump. The Ghost King's strength was simply too great. Every step he took caused the earth to tremble, and wherever the Ghost King's feet stepped, the ground would ignite with surging black flames, cold and sinister. So fast. Zhuowen was alarmed. The Ghost King was so fast that he could barely make out its blurry trajectory. Boom! Before Zhuowen could regain his senses, the Ghost King had already appeared in front of Zhuowen. The Ghost King's right hand held a black saber and slashed at Zhuowen's neck. Black flames followed the saber's trajectory like unbridled pythons. They shot out and coiled around Zhuowen's limbs and bones. Zhuowen coldly snorted and did not dare to hold back. Vast amounts of grand mist god force surged out of his body like a vast river, turning into waves of purple-gold energy that surrounded his body. The black flames were easily neutralized by the vast amounts of grand mist god force. But Zhuowen knew that the Ghost King's true killing move was the black saber behind the black flames. Swoosh! A pitch-black saber light silently flew over and locked onto Zhuowen's neck, a vital point. If this saber hit, Zhuowen's head would fall to the ground. Zhuowen's gaze was extremely calm. He had already prepared himself and took out the purple-gold divine sword. A line of heaven and earth primordial chaos. Zhuowen held the purple-gold divine sword and slashed out with his right hand. The sword drew an arc in front of him, and a dazzling purple-gold light burst out and rushed into the sky. Bang! The saber and sword collided fiercely, stirring up terrifying saber light and sword shadows. With the two of them as the center, purple gold and black energy rapidly spread in all directions in a ring. Look, that guy is actually fighting with the Ghost King. On the distant slope, Lung Feifei suddenly exclaimed. Fu Ming and Jian Wuqing both looked in the direction of the tower. They saw the Ghost King swinging his saber at Zhuowen. At the same time, Zhuowen also slashed out with his sword. The saber and sword collided, and the terrifying energy ripples burst out and spread to the side of the slope in an instant. The entire slope could not withstand the impact of the terrifying energy ripples and was directly disintegrated into fine rocks. On the other hand, Fu Ming, Lung Feifei, and Jian Wuqing immediately retreated. As they retreated, they channeled the divine power in their bodies to form a protective shield around their bodies to resist the terrifying energy ripples. This Ghost King is so terrifying. Just one move, and it has such terrifying power. Fu Ming said in horror. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei also revealed looks of horror. Moreover, they knew that this was only the Ghost King's incarnation. If the Ghost King's real body was here, the blow just now would be even more terrifying. Even if the three of them were far away, they would probably be seriously injured by the aftershock. We can't be careless. After all, this Ghost King is a supreme expert of the great carefree realm like the Domain Guardian. This kind of expert is not something we can imagine, Jian Wuqing said in a low voice. Fu Ming and Lung Feifei both nodded in agreement. If they were still in a relaxed mood at the beginning, they did not dare to relax at all now. Chapter 4056. Fu Ming and Jian Wuqing looked at each other. They didn't know Zhuowen either. It had to be known that their three domains were neighbors with Huxley Domain. When they went out to train, they would often meet each other. Therefore, they knew most of the young geniuses in Huxley. However, they were unfamiliar with Zhuowen. They didn't even know anything about him. Who cares who he is? He's already a dead man, anyway. Fu Ming sneered. Lung Feifei and Jian Wuqing also nodded in agreement. The Ghost King's strength was unfathomable. Even if it was an incarnation, it should have the strength of the ancient star transformation. This kind of strength was not something that they, the younger generation, could contend against. The three of them were the top geniuses of their respective clans. If they faced the Ghost King's incarnation alone, they didn't think that they would be a match for it. If the three of them joined forces, they might be able to tangle with the Ghost King's incarnation for a while. However, it was basically impossible to win. The aftermath of the energy came and went quickly after the three of them retreated far enough They barely managed to resist the aftermath of the energy. After that, the three of them once again looked at the vast plain below the tower in the distance. They were surprised to see that the Ghost King, who had a monstrous aura, retreated step by step. In the end, its huge body crashed fiercely into the rock wall behind it and was embedded in it. And Zhuowen, who they thought should have died, was still standing in the same place. He held the purple gold sword in his right hand and was as immovable as a mountain. What's going on? The three of them were dumbfounded. They wondered if there was something wrong with their eyes. The powerful incarnation of the Ghost King had actually fallen into a disadvantage after the attack just now. Bang! A huge figure suddenly walked out from the rock wall. The Ghost King was in a sorry state. Its scarlet eyes looked coldly at Zhuowen, and its expression became extremely fearful. What a powerful exorcism power! The Ghost King frowned slightly and couldn't help but look at the black broadsword in its right hand. The black flames covering the surface of the black broadsword became very weak, and the huge broadsword became dim and lightless. Just now, the moment he came into contact with Zhuowen, the purple gold energy in Zhuowen's body was like a maggot attached to his black saber, rapidly refining it. Moreover, this energy was still spreading around him, refining his body. This exorcism power was completely different from what he had seen before. This fear of the unknown made the Ghost King very angry. As expected of the Ghost King, to be able to withstand the refining characteristics of my vast, grand mist divine power. Zhuowen stood in place. He looked at the Ghost King, who was in a rather sorry state, raised his eyebrows, and lightly praised. Just as the Ghost King had guessed, his exorcism power was very different from ordinary exorcism powers. He was even more terrifying than the cultivators of the Exorcist clan. He was the nemesis and natural enemy of evil spirits and ghosts. The evil spirits and ghosts that encountered him were basically unable to resist his exorcism power and eventually became his nourishment. The Ghost King's strength was indeed powerful, but in essence, he was also a kind of ghost. Zhuowen naturally had an innate suppression on the Ghost King. Of course, if the Ghost King's original body was here, even if Zhuowen had this kind of advantage, it would still be unable to make up for the huge gap in strength between the two. The Ghost King's face became very gloomy. In the exchange just now, he could see that the human cultivator in front of him was not weaker than his incarnation. Coupled with the strange exorcism power on this person's body, if he continued to fight with this person, he would definitely lose. Human, I take back my words just now. You have proven yourself. You have the qualifications to talk to me as an equal. The Ghost King said in a deep voice. Zhuowen's mouth revealed a playful smile. He coldly looked at the Ghost King, not saying a word. The Ghost King frowned and continued, I don't know why you insist on saving that person in the tower, but I can remind you, this is the person that Huxley clan leader Lu Renjua personally imprisoned. Once you bring this person out of the Ghost King Ridge, Lu Renjua will immediately know, and you will be exposed, and at that time, you will have to face the entire Huxley's attack. You mean you don't intend to back down? Zhuowen asked indifferently. The Ghost King frowned and said, Human, leave. I can forgive your rudeness to me. Leave today. If I don't bring out the person imprisoned in the tower, I won't leave, and you will die here. Zhuowen's right foot stomped on the ground, and the whole ground shook, and he was like a bolt of lightning that charged forward, disappearing on the spot. Human, don't you go too far. The Ghost King was furious. Holding a large black saber in his hand, he also rushed up. The two of them once again engaged in a fierce battle, the light of the saber and the shadow of the sword intertwined in the sky above the wilderness, looking very dazzling. And the three people who were originally peeping on the high slope were dumbfounded, their hearts filled with fear. Huxley hit it really well to think that there was such a genius. I always thought that Huxley's strongest genius was Lei Ling, but this person is much stronger than Lei Ling. Fu Ming said with a gloomy expression. Fortunately, when we were in the Ghost King Ridge, we didn't meet this person first. Otherwise, our situation would be really bad. Lung Feifei said with lingering fear. Now is not the time to watch the show. We have to find the Ghost King's sealed place as soon as possible. If this person finds the three of us when he's free, then we'll be in trouble, Jian Wuqing said extremely calmly. Only then did Fu Ming and Lung Feifei come back to their senses. They had not come here to watch the battle between Zhuowen and the Ghost King, but to understand the Ghost King's true body. Let's go. Let's look around. Since the Ghost King's incarnation is here, then his true body shouldn't be too far away, Fu Ming said decisively. Thus, the three of them immediately concealed their auras and split up to search for the Ghost King's sealed place. Once they found it, they would immediately send a message. And Zhuowen and the Ghost King, who were originally fighting, did not discover Fu Ming and the other two. Bang! 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 Zhuowen held the purple gold divine sword in his right hand. Sword chi surged around his body. He slashed out sword after sword, his aura constantly rising. On the other hand, although the Ghost King blocked Zhuowen's divine sword attack, his aura became more and more dispirited. The Ghost King's heart was filled with bitterness. Zhuowen's vast grand mist divine power was too strange. It was like worms crawling all over his body, constantly refining his body. Moreover, the refined energy continuously poured into Zhuowen's body, causing the latter's aura to become stronger and stronger. The Ghost King knew that the situation was hopeless. If he continued to fight, he would be finished in the end. Human, just you wait. I will definitely take revenge for this. The Ghost King roared, and threw the large saber in his right hand. The moment the large saber was thrown, it turned into a sea of black flames and instantly drowned Zhuowen. At the same time, the Ghost King turned into a cloud of black fog and fled into the distance. Ghost King, you have already entered my cage. You can no longer escape. Chapter 4057. Bang! The Ghost King groaned as he kept retreating in the void. His face suddenly became extremely gloomy. He said in shock and anger, "You're actually a heaven-breaking, level 9 Divine Array Master. When you were fighting with me just now, you were still setting up array patterns around me. Ghost King, welcome to the cage I weaved for you. I wonder if you're satisfied with this cage?" An indifferent voice slowly came from behind. From the sea of black flames, a slender figure slowly walked out. The strange black fire swept over and appeared on his body, but it couldn't cause any harm to him. "You're in the way. Get lost." Zhuowen walked out of the sea of fire and waved his right hand. The purple gold divine sword erupted with blazing purple gold sword chi. Rumble! The sword chi swept out, and the huge sea of black fire was completely annihilated by the sword chi. The surrounding space was even blasted into a terrifying black hole. The Ghost King was shocked. Rolling black gas gushed out of his body like a protective armor, barely helping him resist the surrounding purple gold sword chi. "Human, you and I have no enmity. You came to the place of imprisonment just to save the people imprisoned in the tower. Since that's the case, you don't have to kill me at all. Let me go, and you can save the people in the tower." The Ghost King frowned slightly and suggested to Zhuowen in a low voice. The human in front of him was a monster. He had completely accepted his fate and showed the attitude of a defeated person. "Those who go against me can only atone for their sins with death." A purple gold light flashed in Zhuowen's eyes, and a strong killing intent swept out like a hurricane. At this moment, Zhuowen stepped out of the void and stepped on the purple gold sword chi, as if he was walking on flat ground. He quickly flew toward the Ghost King. "It's not that easy to kill me." The Ghost King's face was ugly. He was going all out, knowing that he could only fight to the death today. Bang! 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 The moment the two figures crossed each other, there were 3 sounds of swords and sabers clashing. Each sound was louder than the last. It was like a sudden clap of thunder on the ground. Crack! A crisp, shattering sound rang out. The Ghost King's pupils shrank to the size of needles. The broadsword in his hand shattered, turning into countless black weapon fragments. At the same time, dense black cracks appeared on the black armor covering the Ghost King's body. In the end, the armor crumbled into dust. Zhuowen slowly turned around and silently looked at the true face of the Ghost King in front of him. After the black armor shattered, what appeared in front of him was a human-shaped black flame. On the left side of the flaming figure's chest, there was a beating heart. "Is this your true face?" Zhuowen said expressionlessly as he looked coldly at the Ghost King kneeling on the ground. Damn it, damn it. The Ghost King clutched his chest and glared at Zhuowen with a venomous look, as if he wanted to skin Zhuowen alive. "Have you seen enough? If you've seen enough, I'll send you to hell right now." Only then did the Ghost King realize that Zhuowen was no longer there. Splat! Before the Ghost King could react, the purple gold divine sword pierced through his back and came out from his chest. The Ghost King turned his head with difficulty and glared at Zhuowen with rage. He had actually lost, and to a mere human cultivator in the fiend god transformation stage, this was the greatest humiliation of his life. "Human, you'll regret this. If this Ghost King ever escapes, it will be the day of your death." The Ghost King's venomous howl soared into the sky and spread throughout the entire prison. Refine. Zhuowen only looked indifferently at the wailing Ghost King avatar. The purple gold energy flowed through the purple gold divine sword and into the Ghost King's limbs and bones. "Ah!" the Ghost King screamed. He felt as if his body was being burned by a ball of fire, scorching and painful. Then he saw with his own eyes that his body was disintegrating. His limbs were melting, and his blood was evaporating. At this moment, the Ghost King's eyes finally revealed a look of terror. This feeling of being refined alive was an unprecedented pain. It took a total of 6 hours to refine the Ghost King. The Ghost King's blood-curdling screams reverberated throughout the space. Finally, his voice was so weak that it was almost inaudible. Waves of pure energy surged into Zhuowen's limbs and bones like a storm. Zhuowen only felt a warm feeling throughout his body. He could clearly feel that his cultivation level and aura were rapidly increasing. This feeling is simply too wonderful. Zhuowen squinted his eyes and sighed softly. The energy that the Ghost King contained was simply too pure. It was more than 10 times stronger than the energy that he had absorbed from all the ghosts in the Ghost King Ridge combined. As the Ghost King's incarnation's energy was too great, it would take Zhuowen a very long time to absorb it all. Zhuowen only wanted to save Shan Lingyun now. He planned to cultivate later. Zhuowen pinched the air with his right hand. Instantly, the Ghost King's surging energy condensed in his palm. Finally, it turned into an irregular black crystal. After keeping the black crystal, Zhuowen landed on the ground. His gaze landed on the tall tower in front of him. "Master, I'm here to save you." Zhuowen suppressed the excitement in his heart and strode towards the tall tower. The surface of the tall tower was densely covered with many powerful array Dao restrictions. However, to Zhuowen, these array Dao restrictions were nothing. With a rip of his right hand, the restrictions on the surface of the tall tower were torn apart by him. When Zhuowen tore apart the restrictions on the surface of the tall tower and entered the tower, Fu Ming and the other two had already found the place where the Ghost King was sealed. In a black swamp tens of thousands of feet away from the tall tower, there was a lingering poisonous gas that could not be removed all year round. At this moment, Fu Ming, Jian Wuqing, and Lung Feifei were gathered in the middle of the black swamp. There was an inconspicuous small temple standing there. This small temple was about the height of a person. It was made of cobblestones of different sizes. In this inconspicuous small temple, there was a ferocious-looking statue of a ghost god enshrined. What was even more strange was that this ghost god statue was very similar to the Ghost King's incarnation under the tall tower. Fu Ming and the other two silently looked at the ghost god statue in the small temple. Their expressions became very solemn. The poisonous gas here is too strong. It's not something we can resist. We can't stay here for long. Jian Wuqing's beautiful brows furrowed. The sword aura around her spread like fog and surrounded her. Even so, Jian Wuqing could only resist the poisonous gas in the swamp. Not only Jian Wuqing, but Fu Ming and Lung Feifei also used all their strength to resist the poisonous gas. However, it was still rather difficult. If our master's information is correct, this should be the place where the Ghost King is sealed. Let's take that thing out and try.